In the crowded emergency room of St. Michael's Hospital, nobody pays much attention to the quiet man with the weathered face. Nurse Martinez rolls her eyes when he politely requests pain medication, dismissing him as just another drug seeker, wasting her time. But everything changes when she finally reads his medical file. The room goes silent as her eyes widen. 37 surgeries for Purple Hearts, and classified mission details with more black redaction lines than readable text. This isn't just any patient. This is Commander Jack Reeves, the man who led the impossible extraction in Kandahar that saved 43 hostages. As the color drains from her face, Martinez returns with the medication and something unexpected, a crisp, formal salute that speaks volumes in the stunned silence. What dark secrets lie buried beneath those redacted lines that made an experienced combat nurse tremble? Subscribe to our channel for more untold stories of America's hidden heroes. The fluorescent lights of St. Michael's emergency room buzzed overhead, casting everyone in the same sickly pallor. Jack Reeves sat motionless amidst the chaos. A rock, in a churning sea of human suffering, his weathered hands rested palms down on faded jeans, concealing their slight tremor. 6 hours and counting. Pain radiated from his left side phantom. Agony from wounds received a lifetime ago. He'd managed 36 months in active combat zones without a whimper. He could handle a waiting room. Around him, the dramas of ordinary life played out in high definition. A teenage girl crying into her phone, an elderly man struggling for breath, a mother cradling a feverish toddler. Jack's eyes cataloged each person, each exit, each potential threat. An automatic security assessment, ingrained through decades of training. Still waiting on that pain medication, he said quietly when Nurse Martinez passed by again. Clipboard clutched to her chest like armor. She didn't break stride. As I told you, sir, the doctor will assess you when it's your turn. There are actual emergencies here. The contempt in her voice was familiar. Civilians saw what they expected. Another middle-aged man seeking pills. They couldn't see the titanium rods holding his shattered femur together, or the synthetic mesh replacing half his abdominal wall. I understand, he replied, voice level, respectful. Martinez rolled her eyes, muttering something in Spanish that Jack understood perfectly. His language training had once included 6 dialects from regions most Americans couldn't locate on a map. The nurse's assumptions about his character didn't bother him. Invisibility had kept him alive for years. An orderly fumbled with a crash cart nearby, knocking a tray of instruments to the floor with a cacophony that made Jack's hand instinctively move toward a sidearm that wasn't there. His heart rate spiked, pupils dilating as combat instincts surged to the surface. 3 seconds of controlled breathing pushed the response back down. A young doctor appeared at the desk, scanning charts. Jack recognized the look of someone working their 20th hour, running on caffeine and professional obligation. The doctor called a name, not his, and disappeared again with another patient. Jack shifted his weight slightly, minimizing pressure on damaged tissue. His file sat untouched on the desk, a half-inch thick government-tissued folder with a discreet red stripe along its edge. Standard medical records didn't come in folders like that. Standard patients didn't have files classified beyond the clearance of most hospital administrators. A child's laughter cut through the room, startling in its incongruity as a boy made a tissue box talk to his worried mother. Jack felt the ghost of a smile tug at his mouth. In another life, he might have had a son like that. In another life, he might have been just another patient. Martinez returned, irritation evident as she grabbed the next chart in line, not his. Her fingers brushed his folder and she paused, noticing the unusual weight and texture. Professional curiosity overcame annoyance. She flipped it open. Jack watched her expression change, frame by frame, like a time-lapse of comprehension. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, fear. In his world, that sequence usually preceded violence. Here, it preceded something almost more uncomfortable. Respect born from revelation rather than earned through relationship. Her eyes met his across the room, wide with something between awe and horror. The clipboard dropped to her side. Her posture straightened unconsciously, muscle memory from another life responding to the presence of command. Jack Reeves looked away first, offering mercy in the form of broken eye contact. He'd seen that look before the moment someone realized they'd been standing next to a ghost. Nurse Elena Martinez had seen countless medical files during her 15 years at St. Michael's. The weight of this one felt wrong in her hands. She flipped through pages of surgical reports, each more extensive than the last. Titanium reconstructions, experimental procedures, skin grafts covering 60% of the torso, 4 separate instances of cardiac arrest during operations. The 20 clinical language couldn't sanitize the brutality captured in these records. Jesus Christ, she whispered. Page 16 documented a synthetic replacement for part of his skull, a military-grade composite not available in civilian medicine. The surgeon's name was redacted, the location was redacted, even the date had been partially obscured, though she could make out Stan, 2014. Then came the military records. Purple Hearts, 4 of them. Bronze Star, with Valor, Silver Star, Defense Distinguished, Service Medal, the paper listed commendations whose names themselves were classified, appearing only as alphanumeric codes. Martinez glanced up at the unassuming man sitting against the wall. How was he even alive, let alone sitting upright without visible distress? She turned the page and saw at the mission file marked Operation Desert Phantom, Kandahar Extraction. Most of the text was hidden behind thick black redaction lines, but fragments remained visible. 43 hostages, against explicit orders. Casualties exceeded 70% of opposing force, recommended for highest commendation, and Commander Reeves, personally extracted. The rest disappeared under black ink. A photograph slipped from between the pages. A younger Jack Reeves stood at attention in dress uniform, receiving a medal from a 3-star general. His face, unmarked by whatever horrors had followed, still carried the same quiet intensity she'd dismissed minutes earlier. Nurse Martinez. Dr. Patel appeared beside her. Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. Not a ghost, she murmured, closing the file carefully. A legend. She picked up the pain medication she'd previously refused him and walked across the waiting room. Patients and staff parted before her, sensing something in her rigid posture. Standing before Jack Reeves, Martinez felt the weight of her earlier dismissal. The man she'd rolled her eyes at had given more of himself for his country than anyone she'd ever met, and she'd treated him like a common drug seeker. Commander Reeves, she said, using his rank rather than the civilian Mr. In her previous interactions, your medication, sir? He accepted it with a slight nod, no triumph or reproach in his expression. Thank you, Nurse Martinez. 3 tours in Afghanistan, she said quietly. Combat Support Hospital in Helmand Province. I should have recognized. She couldn't finish the sentence. Before she could reconsider, Martinez straightened to her full height and rendered a perfect military salute, the first she'd given since leaving the service 8 years ago. The waiting room fell silent. Even the ambient hospital noises seemed too dim. Jack's eyes widened fractionally, the first genuine surprise he'd shown. After a moment's hesitation, he returned the salute with perfect form. Despite sitting down, at ease, Lieutenant K said, softly, having correctly identified her former rank from nothing but her bearing and age. You were doing your job. With all due respect, sir, I wasn't doing it well. She lowered her hand. The doctor will see you immediately. We have a private room ready. As she helped him stand, Martinez noticed how he distributed his weight to compensate for injuries she now knew about but couldn't see beneath his civilian clothes. She adjusted her support accordingly. The salute wasn't necessary, he said as they walked slowly toward the treatment area, his gait betraying only the slightest unevenness. Yes, sir, it was. Behind them, the waiting room exploded into whispered speculation. The words war hero and special forces rippled through the crowd. Jack Reeves walked with his eyes forward, shoulders square, the perfect picture of military discipline, a man accustomed to being watched but never truly seen. Medication slipped into Jack's bloodstream, dulling the persistent fire in his side. As the hospital bed enveloped him, the white ceiling tiles began to swim and blur. The antiseptic smell faded, replaced by the acrid stench of cordite and desert dust. Kandahar Province, 2014. Darkness, complete and absolute. Night vision rendered the world in ghostly green monochrome as Jack's team moved through the compound's outer perimeter. 6 shadows advancing in perfect synchronization, communicating through hand signals and microphones. Overwatch established. Hawk's voice, cool and detached in his earpiece. From his position on the ridgeline, the team's sniper could track every movement within half a kilometer. Perimeter security neutralized. Ghost, the infiltration specialist, had dispatched the guards without firing a shot. His preferred method, a garrote wire of military-grade carbon fiber, left no sound. No blood trail. Jack raised his fist, halting the column. Something felt wrong. The intelligence had indicated 12 perimeter guards, but they'd encountered only 8. Either the intel was bad, or ... Cipher. Scan for heat signatures. Cipher raised a thermal imaging device, scanning the compound. Commander, I'm reading 47 signatures in the main building. Intel said 43 hostages, plus guards. Doc added, adjusting his medical pack. Could mean additional tangos inside. Jack processed the information in seconds. Change of plans. Ghost, Doc, take the east entrance. Cipher, with me through the central courtyard. River, hold position as our exfil insurance. Hawk, you see, anything move that isn't us, you put it down. Roger that. 5 voices confirmed simultaneously. They moved like water through the compound, each man carrying over 2 decades of operational experience in the world's most dangerous environments. Jack had personally selected every member of the unit, built them into something beyond a team. They were an extension of his own body, his own will. The central building loomed ahead, its windows dark. According to intelligence, 43 American and European aid workers were being held inside by a splinter cell of insurgents with ties to both the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. The official mission was reconnaissance only, gather intelligence for a larger QRF assault. But the secondary communication Jack had received from Central Command carried different orders. Extract the package in room 237 at all costs. The package had a name, the daughter of someone very important back home. A sharp crack broke the silence, a single rifle shot from Hawk's position. Contact, Hawk reported calmly. Technical approaching from the North Road, 3 occupants down. Additional vehicles, Jack asked, pressing against the building's outer wall. Negative, looks like an advanced scout, which meant more were coming. Their timeline had just compressed from hours to minutes. All elements, execute now, Jack ordered, abandoning stealth for speed. River, prepare for hot extract in 15. Mics, the next moments exploded into controlled violence. Cypher breached the door with a shaped charge while Jack tossed in a flashbang. They entered the darkened hallway in tactical formation, identifying and eliminating 3 guards in the initial push. Jack's senses heightened to preternatural levels, his awareness expanding to encompass every shadow, every sound. The familiar calm of combat settled over him, a state beyond fear or hesitation where training took over, and the mind calculated probabilities and trajectories with computer-like precision. Commander, we've located the hostages, Ghost's voice reported. East Wing, large storage room, heavily guarded, condition alive, malnourished. 1 guard for every 5 hostages. Roger, secure and prepare for evac. Priority on the package. Sir, ... About that, Ghost's voice dropped lower. Room 237 isn't a hostage holding area, it's some kind of lab, and whatever's inside, they've got it under serious lock and key. The mission parameters shifted in Jack's mind. If room 237 contained bioweapons or chemical agents rather than a hostage... A burst of automatic fire interrupted his thoughts. Bullets splintered the wall beside him as reinforcements poured in from a hidden entrance. Contact front. Cypher, shouted returning fire. Jack dropped to one knee, his rifle finding targets through muscle memory. 3 insurgents fell before they could reach cover. A 4th managed to duck behind a concrete pillar. Frag out, Jack called, releasing a grenade that eliminated the threat. Blood trickled down his arm from a grazing wound he hadn't noticed receiving. The pain registered as nothing more than data relevant until the mission was complete. Commander, we need to move, Cypher urged, reloading. That technical wasn't alone. Hawk reports vehicle movement from the village. Jack nodded. Doc, what's the hostage mobility situation? Most can walk. 3 stretcher cases, we can manage. Then we move now. As they advanced deeper into the compound, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something about this mission wasn't adding up. Why hide a VIP in a lab? Why such heavy security for a simple hostage situation? The door to room 237 loomed ahead, reinforced steel with an electronic lock. Whatever lay beyond was the true objective of this mission, and Jack had a sinking feeling that the 43 hostages were just an operational cover. Cypher, get this door open. As Cypher worked on the lock, Jack's vision began to blur around. The edge of the dusty corridor of the compound seemed to shimmer. The white hospital ceiling momentarily visible through the illusion of memory. BP's stabilizing, a distant voice said Nurse Martinez, monitoring his vitals as the medication took effect. Jack fought to hold on to the memory, to see what was in room 237, but the past was already slipping away, dissolving into the sterile present of St. Michael's Hospital. Jack woke to the soft beeping of monitors and the controlled environment of a private hospital room. The harsh fluorescence had been dimmed, a small mercy for eyes accustomed to scanning horizons for threats. Martinez sat in a chair near the door, reviewing charts. She straightened when she noticed he was awake. How long was I out? Jack asked, his voice rough from sleep. About 4 hours, she replied, approaching his bedside. The medication hit you harder than expected. Your body doesn't process narcotics, normally something that would have been useful to know before I administered a standard dose. Side effect of some field treatments in Uzbekistan, he said, shifting to a more upright position. My file usually mentions it. Your file is ... incomplete. Martinez adjusted his foreline with practiced efficiency. Many sections require clearance levels this hospital doesn't have. I've requested your complete medical records from Walter Reed. Jack nodded, unsurprised. His fragmented medical history was scattered across military facilities on 3 continents, much of it deliberately obscured to protect operational security. Martinez checked his vitals, her movements precise and professional. Yet beneath her clinical demeanor, Jack sensed something unresolved. Lieutenant, he said, using her former rank again. Something's on your mind? She paused, her hand resting on the blood pressure cuff. Permission to speak freely, sir. We're not in a combat zone, Martinez, aren't we? She gestured to his chart. Your body's still fighting wars most people can't imagine. Jack waited, giving her space to continue. I owe you an apology, she finally said, her professional composure cracking slightly. My behavior in the waiting room was unacceptable. You were doing triage in an overcrowded... Jack replied. I look like exactly what you thought I was. That's no excuse. I should have recognized that the quiet guy in civilian clothes was a decorated special operations commander. Jack's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. That would defeat the purpose of what I spent 20 years learning to do. Martinez shook her head. It wasn't just that. It was the dismissal, the contempt. She met his eyes directly. In Helmand, I treated men who'd been through hell, men who earned every bit of pain relief they requested. I know better. Afghanistan changes everyone, Jack said quietly. Helmand was rough country. 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, she confirmed. Combat Support Hospital, 2010 to 2013. I remember the 8th good men, the best. Her voice softened, lost too many of them. A moment of understanding passed between them, the unspoken bond of those who had seen the same darkness. You were there during the Sangin Valley campaign, Jack observed. Martinez looked surprised. Yes, how did you know? Your hands, he replied. The tremor is almost imperceptible, but it's there when you mention specific dates. Classic sign of compartmentalized trauma. She glanced down at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. Sangin was. We worked 36-hour shifts sometimes. Casualties beyond anything we'd trained for. You got them home, Jack said. The highest praise one veteran could offer another. Not all of them. Martinez straightened her shoulders, visibly pulling herself back to the present. Your scan results came back. The internal scar tissue is extensive. I'm surprised you're able to function without constant pain management. Pain can be managed through training, Jack said. An automatic response. That's not medicine, Commander. That's torture. In my line of work, the distinction often blurred. Martinez's pager beeped. She checked it with a frown. There's someone here to see you. Says he's from the Department of Defense. I told him you're not stable enough for visitors, but he's insisting. Jack tensed, instantly alert. DOD wouldn't send someone for a courtesy call. What's his name? Richardson. Samuel. Richardson. The name hit Jack like a physical blow. Richardson had been his handler for the Kandahar operation, a cold-eyed intelligence officer who dealt in half-truths and need-to-know information. Let him in, Jack said, already calculating possibilities, escape routes, tactical advantages. Within the confines of the hospital room. Are you sure? Medically speaking, you need rest. Not Lieutenant, Jack interrupted, his voice taking on the unmistakable edge of command. Let him in, then find reasons to stay in the room. Take your time checking my vitals, updating my chart. Whatever you need to do. Martinez recognized the shift immediately. The patient had vanished, replaced by the commander from the classified files. Yes, sir. As she moved toward the door, Jack added, and Martinez, if he asks you to leave, remember that as my medical provider, you have the authority to refuse on grounds of patient monitoring. She nodded, understanding the subtext. Jack wanted to witness someone outside the chain of classified command. I'll get him, she said, then hesitated. Commander Reeves, whatever this is about, I've got your six. It was a simple phrase, standard military vernacular for watching someone's back. Yet in that moment, it felt significant. Jack had operated alone for so long that the concept of trust had become theoretical rather than practical. I appreciate it, Lieutenant, he replied, and meant it as Martinez left to retrieve Richardson. Jack mentally prepared for Batola, different kind of combat than Kandahar, but potentially just as dangerous. Whatever had brought his former handler here, it wasn't good news. In Jack's experience, when the past came knocking, it usually brought blood with it. The hospital settled into its nighttime. Rhythm quieter, but never truly silent. Lights dimmed. In the corridors, staff spoke in hushed tones. Monitors beeped steadily, marking the continued survival of their charges. Jack lay awake, Richardson's visit replaying in his mind. We've got a situation that requires your expertise, the Dodd man had said, his voice as emotionless as Jack remembered. I'm retired, Jack had replied. Richardson's thin smile hadn't reached his eyes. Men like you don't retire, Commander. They just switch battlefields. The conversation had been deliberately vague, while Martinez was present, bureaucratic language designed to communicate much while revealing nothing. But Jack had understood the subtext. Kandahar wasn't finished. Something had resurfaced. Something dangerous enough to bring Richardson personally rather than sending a subordinate. A nurse not. Martinez checked his vitals at 2,300 hours. She adjusted his medication, assuring him it would help him sleep. Jack nodded without arguing, then palmed the pills when she turned away. Sleep was a vulnerability he couldn't afford right now. Outside his window, the hospital parking lot cast shadows across his room as cars came and went. Jack cataloged each vehicle that lingered too long, each security guard who passed his door. Old habits died at midnight. The ward quieted further. Jack listened to the hospital's subtle symphony, the distant call of a doctor being paged, the squeak of nurses' shoes on polished floors, the hum of medical equipment, then a sound that didn't belong, a soft click, nearly imperceptible, the sound of a door being opened by someone trained to move silently. Jack's body tensed. Years of operational conditioning narrowed his focus to the present moment, cataloging available weapons. For stand, blunt force capability, limited reach, call button, alert hospital staff, create witnesses, water pitcher, projectile, distraction, potential. The door to his room eased open, revealing a silhouette. Jack moved with explosive force, ripping the four from his arm and grabbing the metal stand in one fluid motion. Before his conscious mind fully registered the action, he had the intruder pinned against the wall, the four-pole pressed horizontally across their throat. Commander Reeves, a choked female voice. Sierra Tango, stand down. The military code phrase for friendly forces penetrated Jack's combat focus. He blinked, reality reasserting itself. The pressure of the PTSD episode receded enough for recognition to filter through. Martinez. It was Martinez. Jack immediately released her, stepping back as his tactical mindset struggled against the emerging horror of what he'd nearly done. Jesus Christ, he breathed, the force stand clattering to the floor. Lieutenant, it's okay, she gasped, rubbing her throat. It's okay, sir, my fault. Should have announced myself. No, Jack shook his head sharply. Not your fault, never your fault. His hands were shaken, the post-adrenaline crash hitting him hard. Are you hurt? Martinez switched smoothly to assessment mode, a defense mechanism they both understood. Superficial bruising to the trachea, no permanent damage. She paused, studying him. You're bleeding. Jack looked down, blood trickled from where he'd torn out the four, but he registered no pain. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Sit down before you fall down. The command in her voice bypassed his defenses. Jack sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly aware of how badly his body was trembling. Martinez grabbed gauze from a supply cabinet, applying pressure to his arm. You weren't taking the sleep meds. It wasn't a question. Can't afford to be sedated, Jack replied. Not with Richardson showing up, so instead you're running on empty, hypervigilant, in a hospital full of triggers. She shook her head. That's not tactical thinking, Commander. That's PTSD calling the shots. The blunt assessment hit harder than he expected. In the field, Jack's hypervigilance had kept his team alive. In a hospital room, it had nearly caused him to assault a nurse. How did you know the stand-down phrase? He asked. Standard protocol for special operations patients in military hospitals, Martinez replied, taping the gauze in place. After my second tour, I worked at Walter Reed for 6 months. They train us to handle episodes like this. Jack nodded, respect for her growing. You've seen this before. More times than I can count. She checked his pupils with a pen. The ones who survived what you survived, they all come back with something. The cost of admission. I could have killed you, Jack said, the weight of it settling over him. But you didn't. Martinez sat beside him on the bed, professional distance temporarily set aside. You recognized the stand-down code through a full-blown episode your training held, even against your instincts. Jack stared at his hands, seeing not hospital room shadows, but the blood of countless operations. Sometimes I don't know which memories are real, and which ones I've invented to fill the gaps. The brain protects itself, Martinez said quietly, especially from the things we do in places like Kandahar. The name triggered another flash fragmentary images of Room 257, of decisions made under fire, of consequences that followed him. Home, there were things in Kandahar ... he began, then stopped himself. Even now, years later, operational security was ingrained too deeply to breach. I know, Martinez said simply. I was downstream of whatever happened there. 3 months after that operation, we received casualties with symptoms none of us had ever seen. Burns that weren't burns. Respiratory distress without clear cause. Central nervous system damage that followed no established pattern. Jack's eyes snapped to hers. You treated those patients. I tried. The admission carried the weight of failure. We lost 7 before they transferred the rest to a classified facility. The official record says it was chemical weapons exposure from an insurgent factory, but chemical weapons don't do what I saw those burns do. The implications hung in the air between them. Whatever had been in room 237 had left a trail of suffering that extended far beyond the original operation. Get some rest, Commander, Martinez said finally, standing. I'll stay in the room tonight. No more surprises. As she settled into the chair by the door, Jack realized that for the first time since Kandahar, he was in the presence of someone who had seen fragments of the same nightmare. Not the full picture, no one had that, except perhaps Richardson, but enough to understand what haunted his sleep. Martinez, he said as she dimmed the lights. Thank you. She nodded in the darkness, resuming her vigila, different kind of overwatch than what he was accustomed to, but no less essential. Richardson returned the following morning, bringing with him the antiseptic chill of government authority. He wore the same unremarkable suit as yesterday, carried the same nondescript briefcase. His presence transformed the hospital room into something adjacent to a sci-fi secure facility where classified information could be discussed. Commander Reeves looks much improved, he remarked to Martinez, who was checking Jack's vitals with deliberate thoroughness. He's stable, but far from improved, Martinez replied without looking up. His body is still recovering from severe physiological stress. Richardson smiled thinly. I'm sure the commander has operated under worse conditions. This isn't an operation, Martinez countered, her tone professional but unyielding. This is a medical recovery. Jack watched the exchange with interest. Few people stood their ground against Richardson. The man collected compliance the way others collected postage stamps, methodically, without passion, but with absolute determination. Perhaps we could have a few moments alone, Richardson suggested. his tone making it clear this wasn't actually a request. I need to complete these readings, Martinez replied, adjusting equipment with unnecessary precision. Hospital protocol. Jack suppressed a smile. Martinez was following his instructions, perfectly finding plausible reasons to remain present. Richardson recognized the tactic. His eyes narrowed slightly, reassessing Martinez from medical personnel to potential complication. Lieutenant Martinez has full clearance for any medical discussions, Jack said, directly acknowledging the power dynamic. She's familiar with some of the downstream effects of Kandahar. Richardson's eyebrows rose fractionally, the DoD equivalent of open shock. Is that so? He studied Martinez with new interest. Helmand Province, CSH 2014. Yes, Martinez confirmed, meeting his gaze steadily. You treated case files SIGMA 7 through SIGMA 14. We called them people, not case files, Martinez replied. But yes, I was their primary care nurse before the transfer. Richardson nodded, apparently reaching a decision. He placed his briefcase on the bed tray and entered a complex combination into the lock. The case opened with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a secure tablet and several folders with prominent classified markings. Very well. Given your unique perspective, Lieutenant, your presence may actually be beneficial. He removed a folder stamped, with eyes only in red ink. This information doesn't leave this room. Officially, this conversation never happened. Understood, Martinez said, setting aside her clipboard. Richardson handed Jack a document. 3 days ago, facial recognition software identified this man entering the country through a private airfield in Arizona. Jack studied the grainy surveillance. Photo: the face was older, altered by plastic surgery, but the eyes were unmistakable. Farouk al-Zahir, intelligence officer for the insurgent cell in Kandahar. The same, Richardson confirmed. He's using the name Miguel Santana now, traveling on Venezuelan diplomatic credentials. I thought he died in the Kandahar operation, Jack said, the pieces not fitting together. So did we, until facial recognition flagged him. Richard's mouth tightened. He's not alone. He's traveling with a team of former Special Forces operators, mercenaries from various defunct private military companies. Jack processed this information, his tactical mind automatically calculating threat levels and potential objectives. What's the target? That's the concerning part. Richardson pulled out another document. They've been tracking former hostages from the Kandahar extraction to have already disappeared. Disappeared how? Martinez asked. Home invasions staged to look like burglaries gone wrong, but forensics found traces of the same compound we encountered in room 237. The air seemed to thicken in the hospital room. Jack felt a familiar coldness settle over him, the detached clarity that preceded combat operations. He's harvesting it from them, Jack said, the horrific realization dawning. Whatever was in that room, it's still in the survivor systems. Richardson nodded grimly. Our scientists believe so. Yes. The compound appears to have bonded with specific cellular structures in those exposed during the initial extraction. And now Al-Zahir is extracting it from the survivors, Jack finished, killing them in the process. Which brings me to why I'm here. Richardson leaned forward. You led the team that stopped him once. I need you to do it again. Jack gestured to his hospital bed. I'm not exactly field ready, Richardson. This isn't a field operation, not for you, Richardson clarified. We need your expertise, your knowledge of Al-Zahir's methods, and your connections with the surviving members of your team. My team was disbanded, Jack countered, scattered to the wind on your orders. As I recall, officially, yes. Richardson's expression remained unchanged. Unofficially, we've maintained surveillance protocols on all former operatives. They can be contacted. Martinez watched the exchange with growing concern. Mr. Richardson, Commander Reeves, has undergone significant physical trauma. His body needs time too. Time is precisely what we don't have, Lieutenant Richardson interrupted. Al-Zahir has already harvested material from 2 hostages. The third on his list is Elise Chambers, the daughter of Senator William Chambers. Jack's expression hardened. The package from room 237, yes. The primary extraction target. The pieces clicked into place. Why a routine hostage situation had carried such classified weight. Why a special operations team had been deployed for what should have been a conventional military response. She wasn't just a hostage, Jack said, his voice dangerously quiet. She was exposed to whatever was in that room before we arrived. Richardson hesitated, then nodded once. She was part of a CDC research team studying a biological agent recovered from a Soviet-era laboratory. The insurgents captured them specifically for that research. And you sent us in, blind. Jack's voice remained level, but Martinez could see the tension building in his shoulders. The controlled fury of a man who'd led others into unnecessary danger. You had the information you needed for operational success, Richardson replied, unapologetic. My men deserved to know what they were really walking into, Jack countered. 3 of them still suffer from exposure effects. Doc hasn't had a full night's sleep in years because of what he breathed in that compound. The mission parameters were established at the highest levels, Richardson said, as if that settled the matter. What matters now is that Al-Zahir is tracking the survivors, and Senator Chambers' daughter is next on his list. Jack fell silent, weighing options, calculating risks and costs as he had done countless times in the field. Finally, he looked up. Where is she now? Protected safe. House in Virginia. 2 agents on rotation. Not enough, Jack said immediately. Not against Al-Zahir's team. Which is why we need you, Richardson concluded. Not in the field. Your medical condition makes that impossible, but, as tactical advisor, we need someone who can think like Al-Zahir, anticipate his moves. Martinez had been watching Jack's vital signs on the monitor throughout the conversation. His heart rate had elevated only slightly, but other markers of stress were climbing steadily. This discussion needs to end, she interjected firmly. Commander Reeves requires rest. Richardson ignored her, his focus entirely on Jack. Will you help us protect her, Commander? After everything your team went through to extract her the first time. Jack met Richardson's gaze with the unflinching stare that had made hardened operators instinctively straighten their posture. Not for you, not for the agency, but for my team, and for the hostages who never asked to be part of whatever was happening in that lab. Excellent. Richardson began to gather his documents. We'll arrange secure transport too. No, Jack interrupted. I work from here until my doctor clears me, and I choose my team, no agency interference. Richardson's expression soured. Commander, this operation requires— Those are my terms. Jack cut him off. Take them or handle Al-Zahir yourself. The 2 men stared at each other, neither willing to give ground. Finally, Richardson closed his briefcase with a sharp click. Very well. Work from here. Choose your team. But the clock is ticking. Commander, Al-Zahir won't wait for your medical clearance. After Richardson departed, Martinez turned to Jack. What just happened? The past caught up, Jack replied, already reaching for the hospital phone. And now I need to make some calls. To your old team, Jack nodded, dialing from memory. Time to get the band back together. Martinez returned to Jack's room after her shift ended, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a concerned expression. She found him sitting up in bed, surrounded by medical readouts and satellite images he'd somehow procured despite being confined to a hospital room. Should I even ask how you got these? She said, handing him a coffee. Probably not, Jack replied, accepting the cup with a nod of thanks. Let's just say Richardson's insistence on secure hospital Wi-Fi had unintended consequences. Martinez glanced at the satellite images, aerial views of what appeared to be an estate in Virginia. Is that where they're keeping Elise Chambers? For now? Jack took a sip of coffee, grimacing at the hospital cafeteria brew. It's too exposed. Ground approach from 3 sides. Limited surveillance coverage on the eastern perimeter. Could breach it with a 4-man team. Martinez studied the image more closely. You think he already has it under observation? I would, Jack replied simply. The statement wasn't boastful, just a professional assessment from someone who had spent decades perfecting the art of infiltration. Have you reached your team? 3 of them. Jack gestured to a notepad filled with shorthand that would be indecipherable to anyone but him. Hawk is on a private security detail in Dubai, should be stateside by tomorrow. Ghost was easier to find, teaching wilderness survival in Colorado. He's already en route, and the others. Doc is complicated. His exposure in Kandahar left him with neurological issues. He's in a specialized treatment facility in Arizona. Jack's expression darkened. Another detail Richardson neglected to mention when he claimed my team could be contacted. Martinez sat in the chair beside the bed. What about Cypher, your intelligence officer? That's where I could use your help, Jack said. Cypher went deep underground after Kandahar. Changed identities at least twice that I know of. But he stays connected to certain medical research channels under various aliases. And you think I might have crossed paths with one of his research identities? Jack nodded. He'd be monitoring studies on unusual exposure cases, particularly anything resembling what you saw in Helmand. I can check with some former colleagues, Martinez offered. Several are still working with veterans from classified operations. Good. Jack shifted position, wincing slightly as pain flared across his left side. Martinez noticed immediately. How bad is it? And don't give me the standard, I'm fine response. I need an accurate assessment. Jack considered for a moment, then replied with uncharacteristic honesty. 7 out of 10? Manageable. That's not manageable. That's borderline incapacitating for most people. I'm not most people. No, you're not, Martinez agreed. You're a patient with extensive internal scarring, compromised organ function, and a history of traumatic injury that should have medically retired you years ago. Richardson seems to think I'm still operational. Richardson would send a man with no legs to run a marathon if it served his purposes, Martinez countered. She took a deep breath, visibly gathering her resolve. Commander, I need to be clear about something. You're not physically capable of field operations. Your body has already endured more trauma than any human should survive. Jack's expression remained neutral, but his eyes hardened slightly. I've operated under worse conditions, and each time, you've pushed your physical resilience beyond its limits, Martinez persisted. The human body isn't meant to endure what you've put yours through. Even with your extraordinary pain tolerance and conditioning, There are physical realities we can't overcome. What's your point, Lieutenant? My point is that this mission, whatever it involves, could kill you, even if no one fires a shot. Martinez leaned forward, dropping her voice. Your heart shows signs of stress that concern me. Your liver function is compromised. Your left kidney is operating at maybe 60% capacity. Jack absorbed this information without visible reaction, and your medical recommendation is, step back. Advise from a distance. Let others handle the direct intervention. Others don't know Al-Zahir like I do, Jack said. They haven't seen what he's capable of, and they haven't had surgeries. Martinez's professional composure cracked slightly. I've seen your complete medical history now. Do you have any idea how extraordinary it is that you're even alive, let alone functional? Jack met her gaze steadily. I'm aware of the costs. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're ready to sacrifice whatever remains of your health for a mission that doesn't require your physical presence. The room fell silent except for the soft beeping of monitors. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice quieter but no less resolute. Lieutenant Lin, I appreciate your concern, but this isn't about me. It's about the 43 people my team extracted from that compound, people who trusted us to bring them home safely. You did bring them home? Martinez pointed out. Did we? Jack's expression darkened. We brought them home carrying something. None of us understood. Now they're being hunted because of it. That makes them still my responsibility. Martinez recognized the immovable resolve behind his words, the same determination that had likely driven him through situations that would have broken most soldiers. At least tell me you're not planning to personally confront Al-Zahir. She said. Jack's silence was answer enough. Commander, please. Your body literally cannot withstand that kind of stress anymore. Then help me prepare for it, Jack countered. You have medical training beyond standard field medicine. You understand what happened downstream from Kandahar. I need someone who can keep me operational long enough to finish this. Martinez stared at him, realization dawning. You're asking me to join your team. I'm asking you to do what you've always done, keep soldiers alive when they need to complete the mission. Jack's voice took on an edge of intensity. This isn't just about Elise Chambers or the other survivors. Whatever was in room 237 is dangerous enough that people like Al-Zahir are willing to kill for it. If he succeeds in harvesting enough material, it could be weaponized, Martinez finished, the horrific implications settling over her. She remembered the patients from Helmand, their unexplainable symptoms, their suffering beyond anything conventional medicine could address. Jack nodded once. Watching as she processed the stakes, Martinez stood and paced the small room, her mind racing through medical protocols, ethical considerations, professional obligations. Finally, she turned back to face him. If on this is a significant I agree to help. We do this my way from a medical standpoint. You follow my instructions regarding medication, rest periods, and physical limitations without argument or omission. Agreed, Jack said without hesitation, and at the first sign that your body is failing, you step back regardless of the operational situation. This condition clearly sat less comfortably with him, but after a moment's consideration, he nodded, as long as stepping back doesn't endanger the team or the mission objective. Commander, that's my condition. Lieutenant, I won't abandon my people in a critical moment. Martinez recognized the futility of further argument. Fine, but I make the call on what constitutes critical. Not you, not Richardson, not the mission parameters. Deal. Jack extended his hand, the gesture transforming their conversation from hypothetical to binding agreement. Martinez took his hand, feeling the strength still present in his grip despite everything his body had endured. I must be insane, she muttered. Welcome to Special Operations, Jack replied with the ghost of a smile. Sanity is optional, results are mandatory. The first to arrive was Hawk. Jack heard him before he saw him, the distinctive rhythm of military boots trying to adopt a civilian gait. Martinez was checking Jack's bandages when a tall figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the corridor lights. Still getting yourself shot up? Commander. The voice carried the faint drawl of rural Tennessee. Though Jack knew Hawk had methodically erased most regional indicators from his speech during his years in service, just keeping things interesting, Jack replied. Come in, Hawk. Meet Lieutenant Martinez. The man who entered moved with the contained precision of someone accustomed to calculating trajectories. His eyes pale blue, unsettlingly alert, scanned the room automatically, cataloging exits, angles, potential threats. Though dressed in civilian clothes, khakis, and a button-down shirt that seemed at odds with his bearing, everything about him suggested a weapon temporarily disguised as a person. Ma'am, Hawk nodded to Martinez. Former combat nurse, Helmand Province, current trauma specialist at St. Michael's. Highest marksman qualification in your unit's medical corps. Martinez blinked in surprise. How did you? Hawk does his homework, Jack explained. He doesn't go into any environment blind. Situational awareness keeps people alive, Hawk said simply, taking position against the wall where he could monitor both the room and the hallway beyond. Ghosts 20 minutes out. Had some trouble at the airport apparently. Survival knives don't go over well with TSA these days. Jack nodded, unsurprised. Any word on Doc? Hawk's expression tightened fractionally. His facility released him. This morning, Richardson's people are escorting him here. But what? Jack pressed. He's not the same Doc, Commander. The exposure hit him harder than the rest of us. Martinez finished rebandaging Jack's side and straightened. What kind of symptoms are we talking about? Neurological mainly, Hawk replied. Tremors, sensory processing issues, intermittent memory lapses. The best specialists in the country can't figure out exactly what the compound did to him. Yet, Richardson thinks he's operational, Jack said, a dangerous edge creeping into his voice. Richardson would deploy a corpse if he thought it gave him tactical advantage, Hawk responded, echoing Martinez's earlier assessment. A new voice joined the conversation from the doorway. Some days, I feel like that corpse. 3 heads turned, to see a compact man with close-cropped salt and pepper hair leaning against the doorframe. Unlike Hawk's controlled precision, this man's posture suggested someone constantly fighting for equilibrium, sailor perpetually adjusting to a rolling deck. Doc, Jack acknowledged. Studying his former team medic with concealed concern, Doc entered the room, his gait betraying a slight unevenness that hadn't been present in Kandahar. Commander, good to see you, Vertical. Mostly you know me, too. Stubborn to stay down? Stubbornness isn't a medical treatment. Despite your persistent belief otherwise, Doc turned to Martinez, extending a hand that trembled almost imperceptibly. You must be the lieutenant. I've been reading your notes on the commander's condition. Excellent work recognizing the atypical response patterns to standard analgesics. Martinez shook his hand, her clinical gaze automatically assessing his symptoms. Former Special Forces medical officer, 18 years, Doc confirmed. Until Kandahar introduced me to something they don't cover in medical school. Before Martinez could inquire further, a third figure slipped into the room, literally slipped, edging sideways through the partially open door without disturbing the air currents. One moment the doorway was empty, the next a man stood inside, moving with such economical grace that his entrance seemed like a magic trick. Ghost, Jack greeted him. Still making an entrance without making an entrance? The newcomer nodded once, a minimalist acknowledgement, where Hawk was all contained intensity, and Doc battled invisible demons. Ghost simply existed present, but somehow separate from the space he occupied. His ethnicity was deliberately ambiguous, his features arranged in what Jack had once described as the world's most forgettable face, a cultivated anonymity that allowed him to blend into virtually any environment. 3-man security detail on the floor, Ghost reported without preamble. Standard Federal protective formation. Elevator and stairwell coverage. Rotating shifts. 1 plainclothes in the nurse's station. They're thorough but predictable. Martinez stared, bewildered. How do you know that? You just arrived? Ghost merely shrugged, as if the question itself were unnecessary. Ghost specializes in seeing things others miss, Jack explained, including security patterns most people wouldn't notice without weeks of observation. And getting into places he's not supposed to be, Hawk added. Speaking of which, Ghost said quietly, your Dodd friend has the building wired. Audio in the elevators, corridors, and most rooms on this floor. Visual surveillance at all entry points. Jack nodded, unsurprised by Richardson's precautions. Anything in this room? Not anymore. Ghost replied with the faintest suggestion of professional pride. Martinez looked around, seeing no evidence of tampering. You swept 4 devices already. While we were talking, Hawk answered for his teammate. Ghost the team's easy familiarity, the shorthand communication developed over countless operations, created an almost tangible perimeter around them, a boundary between their world and everything outside it. Martinez found herself simultaneously included and excluded, recognized as an ally but not yet fully integrated. We're still missing Cypher, Jack noted, returning the conversation to operational matters. Maybe not, Martinez said, pulling out her phone. I reached out to my contacts in veteran medical research like you suggested. A researcher named Dr. Elliot Tanner has been investigating unusual exposure cases from classified operations over the past decade. He's published several papers on neurological anomalies in special operations personnel, all under different names, but with consistent methodology. Hawk and Ghost exchanged glances. That sounds like Cypher, Doc confirmed. Always working 3 angles on the same problem. Can you reach him? Jack asked. Martinez nodded. He's presenting at a medical conference in Boston today. I sent him a message using the contact protocol you suggested. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text. She checked it, then looked up with surprise. He's already here. Downstairs, in the cafeteria. Of course he is, Jack said with resignation. Cypher always knows more than he should. As if summoned by his name, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s appeared at the door, wearing a tweed jacket with elbow patches and wire-rimmed glasses that gave him the appearance of an academic rather than a special operations intelligence officer. Gentlemen, he greeted them, his British accent as impeccable as it was completely fabricated. And Lieutenant Martinez, thank you for the invitation, though it was hardly necessary. I've been monitoring Commander Reeves' medical situation since his admission. You hacked my medical records? Martinez asked. somewhere between impressed and outraged. I prefer maintained operational awareness of team health metrics, Cypher replied smoothly. Old habits, I'm afraid. With Cypher's arrival, the room's atmosphere shifted subtly. The team was complete 5 specialists whose combined skills had once made them one of the most effective special operations units in modern warfare. Despite the years of separation, despite the physical changes and hidden scars, the underlying connection remained intact. Jack looked around at his assembled team, each damaged in their own way by Kandahar, each carrying the invisible weight of classified operations that could never be fully processed or discussed outside this circle. And Martinez, the new variable, watching them all with the analytical eye of someone accustomed to assessing broken warriors. Now that we're all here, Jack said, his voice taking on the unmistakable cadence of command, let's talk about Al-Zahir, room 237, and how we finish what started in Kandahar. Jack transformed his hospital room into an impromptu command center. Cypher had procured a secure laptop, Ghost had disabled monitoring systems and established counter-surveillance. Doc reviewed medical files while Hawk maintained watch near the door. Room 237, Jack began. What do we actually know? Cypher activated his laptop. Officially, room 237 was a medical research laboratory. The insurgents had captured a CDC team investigating pathogen samples from a Soviet-era facility in northern Afghanistan. Unofficially, Jack prompted. The CDC team included military bioweapons researchers operating under humanitarian cover. Cypher's expression remained neutral, but his voice carried disgust. They were studying a compound with extraordinary properties, something the Soviets engineered but never deployed. What kind of properties? Martinez asked. Doc answered, hands trembling slightly. It bonds with human tissue at the cellular level, altering biological processes. I've been experiencing the effects firsthand for 9 years. The compound was designed to enhance human capabilities, Cypher continued. Increased strength, accelerated healing, heightened senses. The Soviets called it Serum K. They abandoned research after test subjects developed severe neural complications. Which explains what happened to Doc, Hawk interjected. And why Al-Zahir is harvesting material from the hostages we extracted, Jack added. They were exposed during captivity. Martinez connected this to what she'd witnessed. In Helmand, the patients I treated weren't suffering from chemical weapons exposure at all. No, Doc confirmed. They were experiencing rejection symptoms from Serum K. Their bodies were fighting the cellular changes. But why target the former hostages now, after all these years? Martinez asked. This research Cypher turned his laptop to show a published paper, a breakthrough in stabilizing cellular modifications through viral vectors. The author theorized applications for treating neurological conditions. Let me guess, Jack said, based on anomalous cellular structures found in patients with classified exposure histories. Precisely, Cypher confirmed. The researcher didn't know what they were studying, just unique cellular patterns that could revolutionize medicine. But someone like Al-Zahir would recognize the implications immediately. He needs samples from exposed subjects to recreate and stabilize the serum, Doc concluded. And once he has enough material, Martinez asked. A weaponized version could create temporarily enhanced soldiers, Cypher explained. Fighters who feel no pain, heal rapidly, and operate beyond normal human limitations. For how long? Jack asked. Based on what happened to me? Maybe 72 hours before neurological degradation begins. Doc replied. Longer with the stabilization technique? Suicide soldiers, Hawk said grimly. Use them for one high-value operation, then discard them when the side effects start. Exactly what terrorist organizations would pay millions for, Cypher added. Room fell silent as the implications settled over them. What about Elise Chambers? Jack finally asked. Where does she fit in? Her exposure was different, Cypher explained. As a researcher, she worked directly with refined versions of the compound. According to what I've pieced together, her cellular response was unique. Her body didn't reject the changes. She's the key to permanent stabilization, Doc realized. Her genetic makeup must have some natural compatibility with the serum, making her the most valuable target, Jack concluded. Where is she now? Cypher pulled up satellite imagery. Safe house in Virginia. 2 agents on rotation. Standard protocols. Not enough, Hawk assessed immediately. I could breach that security with minimal equipment. So could Al-Zahir, Ghost added, speaking for the first time since the briefing began. He's probably already watching the location. Richardson wants us to coordinate a new security plan, Jack said. But we need to do more than that. We need to end this permanently. What are you suggesting? Martinez asked. We don't just protect Elise Chambers, Jack replied. We use her as bait to draw out Al-Zahir. That's too risky, Martinez objected. These people have already suffered enough. It's her best chance at a normal life, Jack countered. As long as Al-Zahir is hunting her, she'll never be safe. We need to eliminate the threat, not just delay it. And how exactly are we supposed to do that? Doc asked. We're not exactly in peak fighting condition anymore, Jack looked around at his team, each damaged by their encounter with Room 237 each, carrying visible and invisible scars from that mission. Then his gaze settled on Martinez, the unexpected addition to their unit. "We adapt," he said simply. "We use what we have, compensate for what we've lost, and do what we've always done: complete the mission, despite the odds." The team exchanged glances, a silent communication born from years of shared danger and implicit trust. "I'm in," Hawk said first. "Like I have anything better to do," Ghost added with characteristic understatement. Doc sighed. "Someone needs to keep you all from killing yourselves through sheer stubbornness." Cypher nodded once. "I've already begun contingency planning." All eyes turned to Martinez. As the newcomer, she had the least obligation to join this dangerous undertaking. "This goes against everything in my medical training," she said finally, "but I've seen what this compound can do to people, and I've watched good soldiers die from its effects." She straightened her shoulders. "I'm in." Jack nodded, the ghost of a smile touching his face. "Then let's get to work." Martinez stayed late that night, monitoring Jack's condition while the team developed their strategy. Shortly after midnight, she stepped out to retrieve updated lab results, leaving the operators deep in tactical discussion. The hospital corridor was dimly lit, the night shift operating with minimal staffing. Martinez nodded to a nurse at the station, someone she didn't recognize, which wasn't unusual given the rotating schedules. Something felt wrong. She paused, scanning the environment with newfound awareness. The security detail Ghost had identified earlier was missing from their position near the elevator. The corridor was too quiet, missing the usual sounds of a working hospital. Martinez casually changed direction, heading toward the supply closet rather than the nurse's station. As she passed the desk, she glanced at the computer screen. It showed a loop of empty corridor footage, a basic but effective way to mask movement through the security cameras. Someone had compromised the floor. She ducked into the supply closet, pulled out her phone and texted a single word to Cypher: "Breach." Inside Jack's room, Cypher's phone vibrated silently. His expression changed fractionally as he read the message. "We have company," he announced quietly. The team shifted instantly from planning to action. Ghost extinguished the lights, moving to a position flanking the door. Hawk retrieved a makeshift weapon from where he'd concealed it beneath. Jack's mattress's scalpel with gauze wrapped around the handle for better grip. Doc helped Jack into a defensive position despite his injuries. "How many?" Jack asked Cypher. "Unknown." Martinez didn't specify. Al-Zahir's team likely. Richardson's surveillance wouldn't have been compromised this quickly otherwise. Jack assessed their situation with cold precision. His team was out of practice, under-equipped, and operating in a civilian environment full of potential collateral damage. And Martinez was somewhere outside, potentially in the line of fire. Ghost, find Martinez. Hawk, overwatch on the door. Cypher, access hospital, systems, fire alarms, door locks, anything we can use. Doc, with me. Each man moved with practiced efficiency, despite the years since their last operation together. Jack forced himself upright, ignoring the fire that ripped through his side at the movement. Doc steadied him with a firm hand. "You're in no condition for this," he murmured. "No choice," Jack replied through gritted teeth. In the corridor, Martinez was calculating her own tactical response. 3 armed men in hospital scrubs were methodically checking rooms, moving with the disciplined economy of military training. They carried suppressed handguns, partially concealed under medical clipboards, professional enough to maintain cover until the last possible moment. She needed to reach Jack's room before they did. Martinez removed her white coat and ID badge, altering her silhouette. Then she grabbed alcohol prep pads from the supply shelf, tore them open, and rubbed the strong-smelling liquid on her neck and wrists. To complete the deception, she mussed her hair and adopted the slightly disoriented gait of an exhausted resident at the end of a long shift. When she stepped back into the corridor, she was a different person, someone forgettable, beneath notice. She walked directly toward the intruders, head down, shoulders slumped. The lead operative glanced at her, then aware gesturing her as non-threatening hospital staff. Martinez passed within arm's reach of them, fighting the instinct to increase her pace. As soon as she rounded the corner, she broke into a controlled run. Ghost materialized from the shadows like his namesake, startling her into a defensive stance before she recognized him. 3 tangos, she reported immediately, armed, professional, approaching from East Corridor. Ghost nodded once. Alternative exit, service elevator, West End, keycard access only. He glanced at her hospital ID, now clutched in her hand. That works. They moved silently toward Jack's room, communicating the situation in hand signals. Ghost was surprised to find Martinez understood. When they reached the door, he positioned her against the wall and entered first, weapon ready. 3 incoming, East Corridor, he reported to the team. Martinez has access to the service elevator. Jack nodded, already calculating their next move. We evacuate. Cypher status on hospital systems. I've looped camera feeds on this floor and the one below. Service elevator is isolated from the main control network. Should be clear for descent. Martinez, what's on the floor below us? Jack asked. Oncology and storage. Limited night staff. Good, we move now, before they reach this room. Doc helped Jack to his feet, supporting his weight as they moved toward the door. Hawk maintained overwatch position, scalpel ready. The group advanced into the corridor just as a fire alarm began blaring. Cypher's distraction. Sprinklers activated, drenching the hallway and reducing visibility. Under this cover, they moved quickly toward the service elevator, Martinez in the lead with her access card. They were halfway there when a shout came from behind them. Contact rear. Hawk called, dropping to a defensive crouch. The first attacker rounded the corner. Weapon raised. Before he could fire, Hawk launched his improvised weapon with deadly accuracy. The scalpel embedded itself in the man's throat, dropping him silently to the floor. Move, Jack ordered, pushing Martinez ahead toward the elevator. The remaining attackers opened fire, bullets impacting the wall beside them. Ghost pushed Jack and Martinez around the corner, while Cypher and Doc provided covering movement. Martinez swiped her card, the elevator doors sliding open with agonizing slowness. Ghost pulled her inside while Doc and Cypher half-carried Jack. Through the opening, Hawk maintained a rearguard position, ducking through the doors at the last possible moment as bullets ricocheted off the closing metal. Everyone intact? Jack demanded, scanning his team for injuries. Affirmative nods all around. The elevator descended toward the lower floor. Temporary safety, but far from an escape. They've found us, Jack stated flatly, which means Al knows I'm involved now. He'll assume you're protecting Elise Chambers, Cypher reasoned. Good, Jack replied. We can use that assumption. His gaze settled on Martinez, noting the calm focus that had replaced her earlier clinical detachment. Nice work, Lieutenant. Apparently your training covers hospital escapes as well as combat medicine, she replied dryly. We're just getting started, Jack said, as the elevator doors opened onto a darkened floor. This is going to be a long night. Dawn broke over an abandoned hunting cabin 40 miles outside the city. The team had changed vehicles 3 times during the night, using Ghost's routes to evade potential pursuit and Cypher's technical skills to mask their digital trail. By the time they reached the cabin, one of Ghost's personal bolt holes, Jack's condition had deteriorated significantly. Martinez worked silently in the cabin's small bedroom, using medical supplies they'd taken from the hospital. Jack lay on a narrow cot, his breathing shallow but steady as she replaced his bandages. The sutures are holding, but you've torn muscle tissue, she reported clinically. Without proper treatment, you're looking at permanent damage. How long can you keep me operational? Jack asked, his voice steady despite the pain evident in the lines around his eyes. Martinez met his gaze directly. 24 hours, maybe 48, with injectable analgesics. After that, not even your pain tolerance will compensate for the physical deterioration. Jack nodded once, accepting the assessment without argument. Then we have 48 hours to end this. In the main room of the cabin, the rest of the team had established an improvised command center. Cypher had rigged a satellite connection using equipment stored in one of Ghost's hidden caches. Hawk maintained security from a position near the front window, while Doc prepared field medical kits from their limited supplies. Richardson's been calling non-stop, Cypher reported when Jack emerged from the bedroom, supported by Martinez. Hospital security footage shows the attack, so he knows we've been compromised. Is he compromised as well? Jack asked, lowering himself carefully into a chair. Unlikely. The attack was specifically targeted at this room. Al-Sahir wanted to confirm your involvement before making his main play, and now he has, Jack concluded. Which means Elise Chambers is in immediate danger. The safe house is still secure, according to DOD protocols, Cypher said, turning his laptop to show satellite imagery. But those protocols won't hold against Al-Zahir's team. We need to move her, Hawk stated flatly. That location is indefensible. Moving her creates exposure opportunities, Ghost countered. Vehicle transfers are vulnerable points. So is a compromised safe house, Hawk insisted. Jack studied the satellite imagery, his tactical mind automatically identifying approaches, fields of fire, defensive positions. We don't move her yet. We use the safe house, but we modify the defense, make it a trap rather than a shelter. You want to use her as bait? Martinez said, her medical detachment giving way to concern. After everything she's been through, I want to end the threat, Jack corrected. As long as Al-Zahir is hunting her, she'll never be safe. No secure facility, no protective detail will be enough. He's right, Doc interjected quietly. I've spent 9 years looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows. That's no way to live. Martinez didn't look convinced, but she nodded reluctantly. Richardson won't agree to this plan, Cypher pointed out. He wants Chambers secured and Al captured for intelligence purposes. Richardson doesn't get a vote, Jack replied. Not anymore. He turned to Ghost. Can you get us into the safe house without alerting DOD security? Ghost considered for a moment, then nodded. There's always a way in, but extraction will be more complicated with an additional package. We cross that bridge when we come to it. Jack turned to Cypher. We need equipment. Our usual loadout adapted for current conditions. I can access some resources, Cypher replied, fingers already moving across his keyboard. But we're looking at civilian-grade hardware, not military spec. Make it work, Jack ordered. Martinez, what medical supplies do we need for the next 48 hours? For you or for the entire operation? She asked. Both. Martinez listed off medications and equipment. Cypher added them to his acquisition list without comment. As the team settled into their roles, Martinez pulled Jack aside. I need to change. You're dressing again, she said, loud enough for the others to hear. Once they were back in the small bedroom, she lowered her voice. You're not telling them everything. Jack met her gaze steadily, meaning, your latest blood work shows deteriorating kidney function. The strain of this operation could trigger complete organ failure. I'm aware of the risks. Are you? Martinez pressed. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're choosing a mission over your life. Sometimes that's the job, Jack replied simply. Martinez shook her head in frustration. This isn't Afghanistan or Kandahar. You're not on active duty anymore. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. The mission isn't about me, Jack said. It's about Elise Chambers and the other survivors. It's about Doc and what happened to him. It's about finishing something that should have been finished years ago. At the cost of your life, if necessary. Martinez stared at him, professional detachment warring with personal concern. Finally, she reached into her medical bag and removed a small case. Synthetic adrenaline compounds, she explained, opening the case to reveal several preloaded syringes. Military grade, not available in civilian medicine. I acquired them before we left the hospital. Jack raised an eyebrow. Stealing controlled substances, Lieutenant? Ensuring mission success? Commander, she countered. Each injection will give you approximately 2 hours of enhanced function suppressed pain. Increased strength, heightened awareness. But the crash afterward will be severe, and each subsequent dose will be less effective. Side effects. Potential, arrhythmia, hypertensive crisis, stroke risk. Martinez met his eyes directly. In your condition, using these is playing Russian roulette with 3 bullets in the chamber. But they'll keep me operational. Until they kill you, she confirmed bluntly. Jack studied the syringes, then Martinez's face. Why are you giving me these if you're so opposed to their use? Because I recognize the look in your eyes, she replied quietly. It's the same look I saw in soldiers who were going to complete the mission regardless of medical advice. If you're determined to do this, I'd rather you do it with proper equipment and monitoring. Jack nodded slowly. Thank you, Lieutenant. Don't thank me for helping you commit medically supervised suicide, Martinez said sharply. Then her expression softened. Just make it count, Commander. Copy that, Jack replied with grim determination. When they rejoined the team, plans were already taking shape. Cypher had secured equipment through his network of contacts. Ghost had outlined infiltration routes to the safe house. Hawk and Doc were discussing defensive configurations that would accommodate their limited personnel and equipment. We move at dusk, Jack announced, studying the satellite imagery of the safe house. 24 hours to prepare the battlefield, then we end this. One way or another. While the team prepared for the operation, Cypher immersed himself in intelligence analysis. His laptop displayed multiple Windows surveillance footage, classified documents, medical records, and communication intercepts. The cabin's small kitchen table had become his personal intelligence center. Something's not adding up, he muttered, drawing Jack's attention. What is it? Jack asked, moving carefully to join him. Al-Zahir's pattern is wrong. Cypher gestured to a timeline he'd constructed. The first 2 harvesting operations were executed with surgical precision. In and out in under 30 minutes. Minimal evidence, no witnesses. Standard tier operator methodology, Jack noted. Exactly. But the hospital attack was sloppy by comparison. Multiple shooters, civilian exposure risk, no clear extraction plan. Jack considered this inconsistency, a diversion possibly, or it wasn't Al-Zahir, Jack finished, following Cypher's logic, a secondary team operating without his direct oversight, which suggests he's focused elsewhere. Cypher pulled up the satellite imagery of the Virginia safe house. Perhaps already, in position for his primary objective. Martinez joined them, catching the end of their conversation. You think he's already targeting Elise Chambers? The evidence supports that conclusion, Cypher confirmed. The hospital attack was meant to confirm Jack's involvement and distract us, not eliminate us. We need to accelerate our timeline, Jack decided immediately. If Al-Zahir is already in position— Wait, Martinez interrupted, studying one of Cypher's screens. Can you enlarge that medical report? Cypher expanded the document to a detailed analysis of one of the harvesting victims. This extraction methodology. Martinez leaned closer. I've seen this before, but not in any terrorist operation. Where? Jack asked. A research paper on targeted tissue extraction for cellular therapy. Martinez's brow furrowed in concentration. The technique requires specialized medical training and equipment. It's not something a field operative would typically know, unless that operative had specific medical expertise, Cypher suggested. Martinez shook her head. Not just expertise, specialized training in advanced cellular extraction procedures. This is cutting-edge medical technology. Pull up everything we have on Elzahir's team, Jack ordered Cypher. Focus on anyone with medical background. Cypher's fingers flew across the keyboard, filtering personnel files he'd acquired through his shadowy network of contacts. Nothing in the known associates file indicates medical training beyond basic field medicine. Then he's working with someone we don't know about, Jack concluded. Someone with advanced medical knowledge. Martinez studied the extraction reports more carefully. These procedures, they're not just about harvesting material. They're preserving specific cellular structures intact. Whoever's doing this understands exactly what they're looking for. Someone who knows what was in room 237, Jack said grimly. Someone who understands the compound at a molecular level. Like a member of the original research team, Cypher suggested, already searching for personnel records. The CDC cover team included 3 medical researchers, he reported after a moment. Dr. James Harrison, Dr. Elise Chambers, and Dr. Simon Wells. Harrison died during the initial capture, Jack recalled. Chambers was our primary extraction target, which leaves Wells, Cypher concluded, pulling up a personnel file. Dr. Simon Wells, specialist in cellular biology and experimental therapeutics. According to official records, he was debriefed after the extraction and returned to research work at Fort Detrick. Check his current status, Jack instructed. Cypher's expression changed as he dug deeper into classified databases. Wells officially retired 3 years ago. No digital footprints since then. He disappeared, Jack stated flatly. Or was recruited, Cypher countered, by someone with resources and an interest in continuing the Room 237 research. Like Martinez concluded. Jack's tactical assessment shifted instantly. If Elzahir had one of the original researchers working with him, the threat level increased exponentially. Wells wouldn't just know how to extract the compound, he'd know how to weaponize it. This changes our approach, Jack decided. We're not just dealing with a terror cell looking to acquire a bioweapon, we're facing someone who can actually deploy it. Martinez looked alarmed. If they've already extracted material from 2 victims, and have Wells to process it, they could already have usable samples, Jack confirmed. Cypher, we need to know if there have been any unusual incidents, enhanced combatants, soldiers exhibiting abnormal abilities or resistance to conventional weapons. Cypher nodded grimly, beginning a new search parameter. I'll check incident reports from conflict zones and domestic law enforcement. What about Elise Chambers? Martinez asked. If Wells is involved, he'd know exactly why she's valuable, and exactly how to extract what they need from her, Jack added, his expression hardening. Which means we're out of time. He turned to where Hawk and Ghost were preparing equipment. Change of plans? We move immediately. Ghost, infiltration, route to the safe house. Eastern approach through the forest line offers best concealment, Ghost replied without hesitation. Approximately 2 miles on foot from the nearest unmonitored road access. Hawk, what's our weapons situation? Hawk gestured to their limited arsenal: civilian handguns, a hunting rifle, and improvised tactical gear. Functional, but suboptimal. No suppressors, limited ammunition. It'll have to do, Jack decided. Doc, medical readiness. Doc held up a field kit he'd assembled. Basic trauma equipment, stimulants, and Martinez's special cocktails. We're as ready as we'll be without a MASH unit. Jack nodded, then turned to Martinez. This operation just got significantly more dangerous. You signed on for medical support, not a potential bioweapon confrontation. If you want to step back now, no one would question it. Martinez met his gaze steadily. I treated the victims downstream from room 237. I watched them suffer from something I couldn't understand or cure. Her voice hardened with resolve. I'm seeing this through, Commander. Jack nodded, respect evident in his expression. Cypher, last thing we need is a direct line to the safe house. Can you bypass DoD protocols and establish communication? Already? Working on it, Cypher confirmed, his laptop displaying a complex signal-breaking algorithm. Should have a secure channel in approximately 20 minutes. Good, we need to warn them what's coming. Jack straightened, ignoring the pain that flared through his side. Everyone gear up, we leave in 30 minutes. As the team moved with renewed urgency, Martinez approached Jack quietly. You're not ready for field operations. No choice, he replied simply, without another word. She removed one of the adrenaline syringes from her medical bag and handed it to him. Their eyes met in silent understanding. The mission had just transformed from dangerous to potentially catastrophic, and personal survival had become a secondary concern. Jack pocketed the syringe without comment and turned his attention to final preparation. Whatever happened in the next few hours would either end the legacy of Room 237 forever or unleash its horrors on a scale none of them had imagined possible. The safe house looked deceptively ordinary, a modest 2-story colonial on 5 acres of wooded land. From their observation position at the forest's edge, Jack and his team could see standard security measures. Motion sensors along the perimeter, reinforced windows, 2 agents patrolling in rotating shifts. Too quiet, Hawk murmured, scanning the property through a compact spotting scope. Perimeter security is active, but the pattern is wrong. Explain, Jack prompted, his own instincts already registering the same concern. Guards are maintaining visibility. Standard protocol for this type of location is sporadic visibility, unpredictable timing, varied routes. They want to be seen, Ghost concluded. Exactly. Hawk adjusted his focus. They're not protecting the target. They're establishing a pattern for observers. Jack processed this information, the implications crystallizing immediately. It's already compromised. Cypher had established a secure communication link to the safe house using DoD emergency protocols. He tried raising the security team again, receiving only static in response. No contact for the past 22 minutes, he reported. Could be equipment failure, but ... double quotes not likely, Jack finished. He turned to Ghost. We need eyes inside. Can you get close enough for thermal imaging? Ghost nodded once and disappeared into the underbrush with characteristic silence, a compact thermal scanner in hand. The team waited in tense silence, scanning the seemingly peaceful property for any signs of the wrongness they all sensed. Martinez crouched beside Jack, monitoring his condition with professional discretion. Your breathing pattern is changing, she noted quietly. Pain level, manageable, he replied, the controlled tension in his voice belying the claim. She said nothing, but positioned herself to provide immediate support if needed. The injection she'd given him earlier was keeping him upright, but she could see the physiological cost mounting in his subtle expressions, the careful way he distributed his weight. Ghost returned 14 minutes later, materializing beside them with the same uncanny silence. For heat signatures inside, he reported, showing them the thermal scan, to stationary in what should be the main security office. One moving between the first and second floors in patrol pattern. One seated in the designated safe room. Chambers, Jack asked, positioning matches protocol for high-value asset protection. And the two stationary signatures. Ghost's expression remained neutral, but his voice carried grim certainty. Body temperature is dropping. They've been dead approximately 1 hour. The inside man is maintaining patterns to avoid triggering remote monitoring, Cypher deduced, checking his equipment. DoD systems still show all clear because he's sending the correct check-in signals. Jack made his decision instantly. We breach now. Ghost, you take point on infiltration. Hawk, overwatch from the tree line with the rifle. Cypher, jam, any outgoing communications when we give the signal. Doc and Martinez, hold position here until we secure the entrance. You're going in? Martinez asked, concern evident in her voice. We're one man short already, Jack replied, and I need Ghost's infiltration skills at point. Before she could object further, Jack removed the second adrenaline syringe from his pocket and injected it with practiced efficiency. The effect was almost immediate. His breathing steadied, pupils dilating slightly as enhanced focus pushed pain signals to the background of his awareness. To our window, he told Martinez. Make sure the extraction route is clear when we come out. She nodded reluctantly. Medical objections giving way to operational necessity, the team moved with the coordinated precision of long experience. Ghost led Jack through a blind spot in the perimeter sensors, approaching the house from the east, where architectural features created shadows deep enough to conceal their advance. At the rear entrance, Ghost examined the security system with professional appreciation. Standard DoD protocol, but the bypass trigger has been activated. They wanted access maintained for additional team members. Jack deduced. Ghost nodded and disabled the already compromised system, allowing them silent entry through the kitchen door. Once inside, they moved in practiced formation, Ghost taking point with Jack covering their six, both men, armed with civilian handguns that felt inadequate compared to their former military equipment. The first body was in the hallway, a security agent, shot once in the head with professional precision. Ghost checked him with practiced efficiency. Cold killed during initial breach. Jack nodded grimly, and they continued toward the security office where the thermal imaging had shown to stationary signatures. The door was ajar, revealing a grisly scene. 2 more agents slumped over the monitoring equipment. Execution-style wounds to the backs of their heads. They never saw it coming, Jack murmured, examining the scene. No signs of struggle, weapons, still holstered. Inside man, Ghost confirmed, pointing to a coffee pot with 4 cups beside it. They trusted him. Jack's radio vibrated with an incoming communication from Hawk. Movement at the north window. 2nd floor. Armed individual. Not DoD standard issue weapon. Copy, Jack acknowledged softly. Maintain overwatch. No engagement unless compromise is imminent. They moved toward the stairs. Years of operational experience guiding their movements, despite the time that had passed since they'd worked together. Each step was placed with precision, distributing weight to avoid the telltale creaks of older architecture. The patrol pattern they'd observed from outside continued, footsteps moving with metronomic regularity between rooms on the 2nd floor. As they reached the top of the stairs, Jack signaled for Ghost to hold position while he advanced toward the sound. The figure that passed the hallway opening moved with military bearing, weapon held at the ready position. He was dressed in tactical gear, but Jack immediately noted inconsistencies in his equipment. Pinister market, modifications favored by private military contractors rather than government operators. Jack waited until the patrol pattern brought the man past his position. Again, then stepped out, weapon raised. Federal agent, he said clearly, using standard DoD challenge protocol, stand down and identify. The man's reaction was instantaneous, and revealing instead of responding with the appropriate countersign or showing surprise. He pivoted smoothly into a combat stance, weapon already tracking toward Jack's position. Jack fired twice, center mass. The impacts drove the man backward, but to Jack's shock, he remained standing. A feral grin spread across his face as he raised his weapon again. Ghost fired from his position at the stairs. A perfect headshot that dropped the assailant instantly. Ballistic vest, Jack said, moving forward to secure the threat. Not just that, Ghost replied, kneeling beside the body. He lifted the man's tactical shirt, revealing unusual bruising patterns around the impact points, dark veins radiating outward from bullet wounds that showed minimal bleeding. Serum K. Jack realized. He's been enhanced. Initial deployment? Ghost agreed, checking the man's pupils. Early stage, based on vascular patterns? The implications sent a chill through Jack that even the adrenaline compounds couldn't suppress. If Al-Zahir was already fielding enhanced operators, they were running out of time faster than they'd anticipated. We need to reach Chambers, he said, already moving toward the safe room at the end of the hallway. Jack, Ghost called softly, still examining the body. This man was American military, Delta, or CAG, based on his technique. The revelation added another layer to an already complex situation, not insurgents or foreign terrorists, but American Special Forces operators. Somehow recruited into Al-Zahir's operation. Questions later, Jack replied, though his mind was already analyzing the implications. Secure the target first. The safe room door was reinforced steel with biometric locks designed to keep threats out under normal circumstances. But these weren't normal circumstances. The override code Cypher had provided allowed them access, revealing a sparsely furnished room with a single occupant. Elise Chambers sat calmly at a desk, her expression showing neither surprise nor fear at their entrance. Jack recognized her immediately from the briefing files older than during the Kandahar extraction, but with the same intelligent eyes and composed demeanor. Commander Reeves, she said with unsettling certainty. I've been expecting you. You were expecting us. Jack kept his weapon ready. Years of operational experience, making him wary of the unexpected calm from a supposed hostage. I've been monitoring DoD communications, Elise Chambers replied, gesturing to a laptop on the desk. When Richardson reached out to you, I knew it was only a matter of time. Ghost secured the room's perimeter while Jack maintained focus on Chambers. The agent patrolling the house, not DoD, she confirmed. One of Al-Zahir's they breached 3 hours ago, executed the security team, and left him to maintain appearances while they prepared for the next phase, which is, Jack pressed. A secondary team is en route to extract me, Chambers explained with clinical detachment. They're approximately 20 minutes out, based on their last transmission. Jack keyed his radio. Hawk, be advised, hostiles inbound. Estimated 20 minutes. Copy, came the terse reply. Vehicle approaching from the west access road now. Black SUV, tactical configuration, for occupants visible, or less than 20 minutes, Ghost amended. Moving to the window to verify Hawk's report. Jack studied Chambers more carefully. Her composure in the face of danger suggested either exceptional training or something else entirely. You've maintained access to classified DoD systems while in protective custody. It wasn't a question. I was never really in protective custody, Commander, she replied. More accurately, I was under observation. By who? By the same people who sent you to extract me from Kandahar? Chambers closed her laptop. The same people who've been monitoring the long-term effects of serum K exposure in all 43 hostages you rescued. The pieces clicked together in Jack's mind. You weren't just researching the compound in Kandahar. You were part of the program. I was the program director, Chambers corrected. The Soviet research was promising but flawed. We were perfecting it. The revelation hit Jack like physical impact. The mission that had cost so much that had left Doc with neurological damage and the other hostages vulnerable to Al-Zahir's harvesting hadn't been a humanitarian rescue at all. It had been an asset recovery operation disguised as a hostage extraction. You used us, he said, the words flat and cold. The situation in Kandahar was real, Chambers insisted. The insurgents did capture our team and the civilian aid workers. They did torture us for information about the compound. The threat was genuine, but the mission parameters were a lie, Jack countered. We weren't sent to rescue hostages. We were sent to recover you and your research. Before Chambers could respond, Ghost called from the window. Hostiles deploying tactical formation. They know we're here. Jack made an immediate operational decision. We move now. Hawk, engage targets of opportunity. Cypher, we need extraction at the east perimeter in 5 minutes. Roger. Cypher's voice acknowledged through the radio. Doc and Martinez are prepping. For casualty response, Jack turned back to Chambers. "Time to go, Doctor. I'm not leaving," she said firmly. "Not without the research data." "There is no debate here," Jack replied, the command presence in his voice cutting through any potential argument. "You're coming with us now." Chambers hesitated, then reached for her laptop. "This contains everything, the original formulas, the test results, the long-term monitoring data. If Al-Zahir gets this information, he won't," Jack assured her, taking the laptop and handing it to Ghost, who secured it in his tactical pack. Gunfire erupted outside Hawk, engaging the approaching hostiles from his overwatch position. The distinctive crack of his hunting rifle was answered by automatic weapons fire, the difference in firepower starkly apparent. "Exit strategy?" Ghost asked, already moving toward the door. "East side, through the tree line to the secondary position," Jack directed. "Martinez and Doc will cover the final extraction point." They moved into the hallway, Jack taking point with Chambers between them and Ghost covering their rear. The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly as they descended the stairs. Multiple impacts against the exterior of the house indicated that Al-Zahir's team was executing a standard breach pattern. "Front and rear, simultaneous entry," Jack assessed, guiding them toward a side door Ghost had identified during their infiltration. "We have maybe 30 seconds before they're inside." As they reached the ground floor, the front door exploded, inward breached by shaped charges rather than manual entry techniques. The level of force suggested operators who weren't concerned about potential damage to the targeton, another indication that this wasn't a standard extraction team. Jack fired twice at the first figure through the door, scoring hits that should have been incapacitating. Like the enhanced operator upstairs, this one absorbed the impacts and continued advancing, movements fluid and unnaturally fast. "They're all enhanced," Ghost observed, his usual calm giving way to controlled urgency. "Standard tactics won't work. Headshots only," Jack ordered, adjusting his aim and dropping the lead operator with a precision shot that finally stopped his advance. They moved quickly toward the side exit, engaging two more enhanced operators who attempted to cut off their escape route. Ghost's marksmanship was flawless despite the years since his last combat operation. Each shot finding its target with surgical precision, Jack felt the adrenaline compound surging through his system, pushing his damaged body beyond its natural limits. Pain receded to background noise as combat focus sharpened his senses to preternatural levels. He moved with fluid economy, each action precisely calculated for maximum effect with minimum exposure. They reached the side door just as another explosion rocked the rear of the house. Smoke filled the interior, obscuring visibility and creating momentary confusion among the assault team. Jack seized the opportunity, leading Chambers and Ghost through the side exit and into the relative cover of exterior shrubbery. "Hawk status," Jack radioed as they moved toward the tree line. "2 hostiles down, 3 still active. Advancing on your position," came the terse reply. "I'm repositioning to cover your withdrawal." "Copy. We're proceeding to extraction point." Fast they reached the first line of trees. A burst of automatic fire kicked up dirt at their feet. Ghost pushed Chambers down behind a fallen log while Jack returned fire, forcing the pursuing operators to seek cover. "Commander," Chambers called urgently, "you need to know these aren't just enhanced operators. They're the next generation." "Prototype meaning?" Jack asked, reloading his weapon with practiced efficiency. "Meaning they can't feel pain, their tissue damage regenerates rapidly, and their neural processing is accelerated. Standard tactics won't stop them for long." "Then we change tactics," Jack replied grimly. He keyed his radio again. "Cypher, we need the package at extraction point Alpha. Now." "Already deploying," Cypher confirmed. As they moved deeper into the forest, Martinez's voice came over the radio. "Jack, be advised. Doc is picking up unusual readings on his medical scanner. The enhanced operators are showing thermal signatures well above normal human baseline. Their metabolic rate is accelerated," Chambers explained. "It's what gives them their advantages, but it also creates vulnerabilities. Sustained exertion will trigger systemic collapse eventually." "How eventually?" Jack asked. "Longer than we have ammunition," Ghost observed dryly. Checking his remaining rounds, they reached a small clearing where Cypher waited with a rugged off-road vehicle. Doc and Martinez had established a hasty medical collection point, equipment ready for potential casualties. "Hawks covering our 6, Cypher reported, "but those operators are moving faster than standard human pursuit patterns, because they're not standard humans anymore," Jack replied, helping Chambers into the vehicle. Martinez approached Jack immediately, her medical training registering the signs of strain beneath his adrenaline-enhanced composure. "Your cardiac rhythm is dangerously elevated." "Not now," he said, focusing on the tactical situation. Hawk emerged from the tree line at a controlled run, rifle still at the ready. 3 enhanced operators still in pursuit, less than 2 minutes behind me. "We need to move," Jack ordered, but Chambers caught his arm. "Commander, wait. There's something you need to understand about Al-Zahir's operation." "Save it for the debrief," Jack replied, already calculating exit routes and defensive positions. "No," she insisted, her voice taking on new urgency. The man you think is Al-Zahir isn't Farouk Al-Zahir at all. He's Dr. Simon Wells. The revelation landed like a physical blow, forcing Jack to reassess everything they thought they knew about the operation. Wells is dead, he stated flatly. Wells disappeared 3 years ago because he continued the research independently, Chambers explained rapidly. He used facial reconstruction to assume Al-Zahir's identity after the real Al-Zahir died during an extraction attempt. Why? Jack demanded. Because a foreign terrorist can operate with fewer restrictions than an American scientist, she replied, and because he needed access to the original test subjects. The sound of approaching hostiles cut their conversation short. Jack made a tactical decision based on the new information. Everyone in the vehicle now. We're extracting 2 secondary position. As they piled into the rugged off-road vehicle, Jack knew the revelation about Wells changed everything about their approach. This wasn't just a terrorist seeking a bioweapon. Anymore, this was a rogue scientist with intimate knowledge of both the compound and Dodge security protocols. The game had just become significantly more dangerous. The abandoned ranger station provided temporary sanctuary as the team regrouped. Cypher had established basic security perimeters, while Doc treated a graze wound Hawk had received during their extraction. Martinez focused on Jack, whose condition was deteriorating as the adrenaline compounds metabolized out of his system. BP dropping, heart rate erratic, she reported clinically, though her eyes betrayed deeper concern. The stimulant crash is hitting harder than anticipated. How long? Jack asked, his voice rough with suppressed pain. Until complete system failure, maybe an hour. Martinez administered a stabilizing injection, but you'll be combat ineffective. In 20 minutes. Jack nodded, accepting the assessment without argument. He turned his attention to Chambers, who was working with Cypher to analyze the data on her laptop. Time for the full story, Doctor, he said. No more compartmentalized information. Chambers looked up, her expression conflicted. Some of this remains classified beyond your clearance level. Commander? Those distinctions stopped mattering when enhanced operators started shooting at us. Jack countered. We need everything you know about Wells, the compound, and what he's planning. She hesitated, then nodded. The project began as legitimate medical research or cellular regeneration for combat injuries. The Soviet samples showed extraordinary potential for healing traumatic wounds that would otherwise be fatal. But it evolved beyond that, Ghost observed. Yes, when we discovered the compound could temporarily enhance physical capabilities, military applications became the priority. Chambers' voice carried a note of regret. Wells was particularly focused on the neural enhancement aspects, increased reaction times, accelerated cognitive processing. The perfect soldier, Jack said flatly, that was the goal. But the side effects proved catastrophic. Test subjects experienced severe neurological degradation after exposure. Some died, others suffered permanent damage. She glanced at Doc, understanding in her eyes. Your exposure in Kandahar was minimal, incidental. That's why you've survived this long, with only moderate symptoms. Doc's hands trembled slightly as he closed his medical kit. Moderate is a relative term, Doctor. What happened in Kandahar? Jack pressed. The real story? Chambers sighed. We were legitimate researchers working with the CDC as cover. The insurgents who captured us initially wanted ransom, but when they discovered the nature of our work, they recognized its potential value. They began forcing us to continue the research using their facilities and their fighters as test subjects, creating their own enhanced soldiers, Hawk concluded. Trying to, Chambers corrected. Most died horribly. The compound wasn't stable, and we deliberately sabotaged certain elements of the process. Then your extraction was ordered, Jack continued. Yes, but Wells had become obsessed with the potential. When the insurgents realized we were sabotaging the research, they separated us. Wells was kept in a different location when your team extracted me and the others from the compound. Wells was left behind, Jack finished. Intentionally or accidentally? Chambers didn't answer directly. The official mission parameters were to extract all American personnel. The actual operational directive transmitted to your team specified only the main compound. The implication hung in the air between them. Jack had been sent to extract Chambers and the other researchers, but Wells had been deliberately excluded from the mission parameters. He was considered expendable. Jack? Stated or too dangerous to recover, Chambers replied quietly. His notes from the weeks before the extraction showed increasing instability. He was conducting unauthorized experiments, taking significant risks. So the DoD left him to die in Kandahar, Martinez said, her expression hardening. But he didn't die, no. He integrated himself with the insurgent cell, eventually assuming leadership through his enhanced subjects. When the real Al-Zahir was killed in a drone strike 3 years ago, Wells saw an opportunity. He underwent extensive plastic surgery and assumed Al-Zahir's identity, and now he's harvesting material from the original exposure victims, Jack said. Building an army of enhanced operators. Not an army, Chambers corrected. A demonstration. Wells doesn't want to create super soldiers for some terrorist organization. He wants to prove his research works, force the government to acknowledge its value in him. By doing what? Jack demanded. by executing a high-profile operation with his enhanced subjects, something that can't be covered up or denied. Chambers turned her laptop to show surveillance photos of a government facility. This was accessed from the safehouse computer before the breach. Wells is targeting a DoD research facility in Maryland. Cypher studied the images. That's a level 4 biocontainment facility. Maximum security, which makes it the perfect target, Chambers explained. If his enhanced operators can breach it successfully, it proves the viability of his work beyond any doubt. And if they breach containment in a Martinez asked, the horror of such a scenario evident in her voice. Catastrophic consequences, Chambers confirmed grimly. Potentially thousands of civilian casualties from released pathogens. Jack processed this information, his tactical mind already formulating response options despite his deteriorating physical condition. How many enhanced operators does Wells have based on the harvesting operations and what we encountered at the safe house? Probably 8 to 10, and their effectiveness window? 72 hours from initial enhancement before neurological degradation begins. They'll experience increasing instability after that point, eventually leading to complete system collapse. When did the safehouse team get enhanced? Recently, Chambers assessed. Their physiological markers were still in early stages. I'd estimate within the last 24 hours. Jack nodded, calculating time. So, Wells is operating on a 3-day window for whatever he's planning. Most likely, yes. The team exchanged glances. The magnitude of the threat settling over them, standard tactical response would be ineffective against enhanced operators. Regular security forces would be overwhelmed, leading to catastrophic casualties. We need to alert Dodd, Hawk suggested. Get a full tactical team deployed to the facility and tell them what Jack countered, that their own classified research has created superhuman terrorists, that one of their presumably dead scientists is leading the operation. Richardson would bury this so deep we'd never see daylight again. So what's the alternative? Martinez asked. We can't take on enhanced operators with our limited resources, and you, she gestured to Jack's deteriorating condition, are in no shape for another combat operation. Jack fell silent, weighing impossible options against unacceptable outcomes. Finally, he looked at Chambers. The compound? Can it be neutralized? She considered the question carefully. Theoretically, yes. The molecular structure could be disrupted by a targeted counteragent. Could you create such a counteragent with the right equipment and materials? Chambers confirmed. I've been working on stabilization techniques that could be reversed to create a neutralizing agent. How quickly? 8 hours minimum, but it would need to be administered directly to each enhanced subject. Jack nodded, the outline of a plan forming in his mind. Then we have 2 parallel objectives. First, alert the facility without going through DoD channels. Second, develop a counteragent to neutralize Wells' enhanced operators before they can execute their attack. And Wells? Himself? Ghost asked. He'll be directing the operation, not participating, Jack assessed. Standard tactics will work on him. The team began discussing options, but Martinez pulled Jack aside, concern evident in her expression. Your body can't handle another operation, she said quietly. The last adrenaline injection nearly triggered cardiac arrest. Another would kill you outright. I don't need to participate directly, Jack replied. Just coordinate from a command position. Even that level of stress in your condition could be fatal, Martinez insisted. This isn't about courage or determination anymore, it's simple physiology. Your body has reached its limit. Jack met her gaze steadily. Then help me push past them one more time. I took an oath to do no harm, she countered. Professional ethics warring with operational necessity, and thousands of civilians will die if we don't stop this, Jack replied. Simply, sometimes the moral calculation isn't clean, Lieutenant. Martinez struggled visibly with the Dalamahar medical training demanding she protect her patient, her military experience acknowledging the greater stakes involved. One final injection, she said finally. Modified composition to reduce the cardiac stress, but I need your word that you'll maintain a genuine command position, no direct engagement. Agreed, Jack replied without hesitation, though they both recognized the promise might be impossible to keep once the operation was underway. As they rejoined the team, Jack saw that a plan was already taking shape. Cypher had identified back communications to alert the facility security. Ghost and Hawk were discussing infiltration routes. Doc was assembling medical supplies to assist Chambers with the counteragent development. Despite their injuries, their limited resources, and the overwhelming nature of the threat, the team had found its purpose, again the same seamless operational focus that had made them legendary in their active duty days. We move in 6 hours, Jack announced, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had led men through impossible situations before. Chambers and Doc will develop the rest of us prepare tactical approach options. As the team dispersed to their assigned tasks, Jack caught Martinez watching him with a complex mixture of professional concern and reluctant admiration. You know this is a suicide mission, she said quietly. Wouldn't be the first time, he replied, with grim humor. The difference is, this time your body might kill you before the enemy gets the chance. Jack nodded, acknowledging the reality of his condition without surrendering to it. Then we better work quickly. The ranger station's small kitchen had been transformed into an improvised laboratory. Chambers worked with focused intensity, converting basic medical supplies and chemicals into the neutralizing agent they desperately needed. Doc assisted, his medical training proving valuable despite his trembling hands. The delivery mechanism is the challenge, Chambers explained, carefully. Measuring compounds, the counteragent needs to enter the bloodstream directly to disrupt the compound's neural bonding. Injection would be ideal, Doc noted, but combat conditions make that impractical. What about aerosol delivery? Martinez suggested, joining. Their discussion concentrated enough to penetrate through respiration or skin contact. Chambers considered this possible, but it would require higher concentration and proximity. Effective range would be limited to a few meters at most. Better than nothing, Martinez concluded. We'll adapt tactics accordingly. In the main room, Jack, Cypher, Ghost, and Hawk huddled around satellite imagery of the target facility. Jack's condition had stabilized temporarily, though Martinez's worried glances told him the reprieve was short-lived. Perimeter security includes motion sensors, infrared cameras, and armed patrols. Cypher detailed, pointing to key positions. Standard DoD protocol for a Level 4 facility, which means Wells knows exactly how to breach it, Jack noted. He'll have countermeasures for everything in the security playbook. So we go off-book, Ghost suggested. Approach from an unexpected vector. Hawk studied the facility layout. The maintenance tunnels? They connect to the main ventilation system here and here. He indicated access points on the schematic. Security focuses on the entry points, not the infrastructure. Wells will know about the tunnels, Jack countered, but he may not prioritize them if he's planning a direct assault with enhanced operators. We can use that, Ghost said, already formulating an infiltration route. Small team through the tunnels intercept them inside the facility, rather than engaging at the perimeter. Jack nodded, the tactical approach solidifying in his mind. Hawk, you'll establish overwatch from this ridge. You'll be our eyes on the external approach. Ghost and Cypher infiltrate through the maintenance tunnels with the counteragent Martinez, and I coordinate from a mobile command position here. He indicated a location with good visibility but defensive cover, and Doc Cypher asked. He stays with Chambers at our fallback position, Jack decided. His condition makes field operations too risky, and we need someone to maintain secure communications if this goes sideways. The team continued, refining details, communications protocols, engagement parameters, extraction routes. Despite years of separation, they fell back into operational planning with the synchronicity that had once made them legendary. Martinez stepped away briefly to check on Chambers' progress. Returning with a cautious optimism, the counter-synthesis is proceeding. They need another 2 hours. Jack checked his watch. Timeline based on Chambers' assessment. Wells will likely move on the facility within the next 12 hours. Cypher replied, considering the operational window of his enhanced subjects and the preparation required. So we position tonight, prepare for their approach at dawn, Jack concluded. Ghost nodded. Standard tactical choice for this type of operation. First light provides enough visibility for precision movement while maintaining some cover of darkness. We should alert Richardson, Martinez suggested. Whatever his faults, he has resources we don't. Jack shook his head firmly. Richardson would prioritize capturing the technology over neutralizing the threat. We'd end up with competing objectives and friendly fire. So we're completely on our own, Martinez said, the weight of that reality evident in her voice. We've operated with less before, Hawk reminded her. Jack surveyed his teamage, carrying physical and psychological scars from past operations, each driven by a complex mixture of duty, loyalty, and personal redemption. They weren't the perfect, precision instrument they'd once been, but what remained was perhaps more valuable: experience, resilience, and the unshakable bond forged through shared sacrifice. I need to be clear about the parameters of this operation, Jack said, his voice taking on the unmistakable tone of command briefing. Our objective is neutralization of the enhanced operators and capture or elimination of Wells. We are not seeking to recover or preserve the compound technology. The team exchanged glances, understanding the significance of this directive. Some might consider that technology too valuable to lose. Cypher observed carefully. They weren't in Kandahar, Jack replied simply. They didn't see what it did to the test subjects. They haven't watched Doc struggle with the after effects for 9 years. Doc nodded from the doorway, having joined them silently. The compound is too dangerous to preserve. The human cost is too high, regardless of potential applications. Agreed, Hawk said immediately. Ghost nodded his concurrence. Then we're aligned, Jack concluded. Primary objective is prevention of a mass casualty event. Secondary objective is neutralization of all enhanced operators. Tertiary objective is capture of Wells, and if capture isn't possible, Martinez asked. Jack met her gaze steadily. Then we ensure he can't continue his work. The implication was clear, and no one in the room objected. Whatever ethical lines existed in conventional operations had been crossed when Wells weaponized human beings and targeted a biological research facility. One more thing, Jack added. If I become non-functional during the operation, Martinez assumes command. This directive caused more surprise, particularly from Martinez herself. Commander, I'm a medical officer, not a tactical leader, she protested. You have combat experience, medical expertise, relevant to the enhanced operators, and most importantly, you're not compromised by past connection to this mission. Jack's tone made it clear this wasn't open for debate. The team will follow your orders if I'm incapacitated. The veteran operators exchanged glances, then nodded their acceptance of this contingency. Martinez straightened unconsciously, the responsibility settling visibly onto her shoulders. As the planning session concluded, Chambers appeared with a rack of test tubes containing an amber liquid. First batch is ready for testing, she announced. Oh, do we test it? Hawk asked a question on everyone's mind. Chambers hesitated, then replied with clinical detachment. We need a sample of enhanced tissue to verify efficacy. All eyes turned to Doc, whose expression remained carefully neutral. I still carry trace amounts of the compound in my system, he confirmed. Not enough for enhancement effects, but sufficient. For testing purposes, the process will be painful, Chambers warned him. I'm aware, Doc replied simply. Martinez stepped forward. I'll assist with the extraction and testing. We'll minimize discomfort as much as possible. As Doc and Martinez followed Chambers back to the improvised lab, Jack turned to find Ghost observing him with uncharacteristic openness. You're not planning to survive this operation? Ghost stated quietly. It wasn't a question, and Jack didn't insult his teammates' intelligence by treating it as one. The mission parameters are clear. Team survival is the priority. Your survival is part of team survival, Ghost countered. Not this time. Jack met his gaze directly. We both know what the medical reality is. I'm operating on borrowed time and chemical assistance. Ghost didn't argue further, but his expression conveyed volumes. In their years of operations together, Jack had never left a man behind, had risked his own life countless times to ensure every team member returned. The role reversal sat uncomfortably with all of them. Just make it count, Ghost finally said, echoing Martinez's earlier words. Jack nodded once. The simple phrase carrying the weight of 2 decades of shared combat experience. Always do. As night fell, the team made final preparations. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Communications systems tested. The counteragent, successfully verified against Doc's tissue sample, was loaded into specialized delivery devices Chambers had created from medical nebulizers. Jack watched his team work with quiet pride. Despite everything, the years of separation, the physical damage they'd all endured, the betrayal implicit in learning the truth about their most costly mission, they functioned as a single organism, each part compensating for the weaknesses of the others. Martinez approached with the modified adrenaline injection they'd discussed earlier. This is the last one, she said quietly. I've balanced it to reduce cardiac stress, but the fundamental reality remains unchanged. Your body can't sustain this level of chemical enhancement much longer. How long will it give me? 4 hours of functional capacity, maybe 6 with pure willpower? Her clinical detachment slipped, revealing genuine concern beneath. But the damage will be permanent and cumulative. Jack accepted the syringe without comment. They both knew he wouldn't be coming back from this operation, at least not as the same man who went in. The only question was whether his sacrifice would be enough to complete the mission. It's time, he announced to the team. Final equipment check. Then we moved to position. As they gathered their gear, Jack felt the familiar pre-mission calm, settling over him, the clarity that came with accepting whatever lay ahead. One last operation. One final mission to protect the innocent from threats they would never know existed. He looked at the faces of his team, Ghost's quiet determination, Hawk's focused intensity, Cypher's analytical precision, Doc's enduring resilience despite his condition, Martinez's unexpected courage, and even Chambers' remorseful dedication to undoing the damage her research had caused. Whatever happens, Jack told them, it's been an honor. No further words were necessary. They moved out into the darkness, each carrying the weight of past missions and the determination to ensure this one, at least, would end differently. Darkness shrouded the facility in layers of shadow and mist. From his overwatch position on the ridge, Hawk had clear sight lines to all approach vectors. His hunting rifle, modified with a night vision scope, cobbled together from Ghost's emergency supplies. Perimeter still quiet, he reported over the secure comms Cypher had established. Regular patrol patterns unchanged. In the maintenance tunnel beneath the facility, Ghost and Cypher advanced silently, each carrying specialized delivery devices. For the count region, the narrow concrete passage echoed with the distant hum of ventilation systems and the occasional ping of expanding metal as the facility's climate control adjusted to the pre-dawn temperature drop. Junction point ahead, Ghost whispered. Matches the schematic. Access to main building should be 20 meters beyond. Jack and Martinez maintained the command position from a modified hunter's blind that provided both concealment and sightlines to the facility's main entrance. Jack had taken the final adrenaline injection 30 minutes earlier, his body responding with the unnatural clarity and strength the compound provided. Martinez monitored his vitals with silent concern, her medical training telling her what the readings meant for his long-term survival. Movement east perimeter, Hawk's voice came through the comms. Vehicle approaching. Tactical configuration, lights out. That's them, Jack confirmed. How many? Vehicle capacity, 8 to 10? Can't confirm occupants, yet hold position. No engagement until we confirm enhanced operators. The vehicle and nondescript utility van stopped 200 meters from the facility's main gate. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the side door slid open, and figures emerged moving with the fluid, too perfect precision that marked them as enhanced. Confirming 6 enhanced operators, Hawk reported, plus 1 additional figure remaining with the vehicle. Likely Wells. Approach vector, Jack asked. Standard tactical formation, direct approach to east entrance. They're not bothering with stealth. They don't need to, Jack observed grimly. With their capabilities, speed is more advantageous than stealth. Inside the tunnel, Ghost and Cypher reached the access point to the main facility, a maintenance hatch that would place them near the central laboratory areas. In position, Ghost reported, ready to breach on command. Jack assessed the tactical situation, calculating timing and positioning. Hold until they engage facility security. We want them committed to their entry point before we reveal our position. At the perimeter fence, the enhanced operators moved with synchronized precision. Rather than cutting through the barrier, one simply grabbed the reinforced fencing and pulled, the metal giving way with a shriek of protest that carried across the pre-dawn stillness. Alarms immediately blared across the facility. They're making no attempt at subtlety, Martinez observed. They don't need to, Jack replied. Their timeline is fixed by the enhancement window. Every hour counts. Security forces emerged from the facility. Standard DoD protective detail armed with automatic weapons. They established a defensive perimeter, shouting warnings that were ignored as the enhanced operators continued their advance. The first shots came from the security team-controlled bursts aimed at center mass. The enhanced operators absorbed the impacts without breaking stride, confirming Chambers' assessment of their capabilities. Security team, weapons ineffective, Hawk reported. Enhanced operators continuing advance. Facility security falling back to secondary position. Ghost, Cypher execute infiltration now, Jack ordered. Priority is reaching the central lab. Before they do, copy, Ghost acknowledged. Breaching maintenance hatch. The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly as the enhanced operators reached the facility's external doors. Rather than using explosives or breaching tools, one simply punched through the reinforced steel, the metal buckling under impact. The display of raw strength sent the remaining security forces into retreat, their training inadequate for such an unprecedented threat. Wells is moving, Hawk reported, approaching the facility behind his team. Description, Jack demanded. Male, approximately 50, civilian clothing but military bearing. Carrying a case, likely scientific equipment. That's him, Jack confirmed. Martinez, we move to secondary position now. They relocated quickly, using the confusion of the breach to approach the facility from the west side away from the main engagement. Martinez kept pace with Jack, her field medical kit secured across her back, weapon held with the competence of someone whose combat training had never fully faded. Inside the facility, Ghost and Cypher navigated service corridors toward the central laboratory complex. The sounds of combat echoed through the building, gunfire, shouting, the distinctive impact of enhanced operators engaging with conventional security forces. Multiple casualties among security personnel, Cypher reported grimly. Enhanced operators, proceeding directly to central lab area. They know exactly where they're going. Wells provided detailed floor plans, Jack assessed. Intercept them before they reach the biological containment sections. Ghost and Cypher increased their pace. The counteragent devices ready for deployment. They reached a junction that would place them on an intercept course with the enhanced operators, taking up defensive positions to maximize the effectiveness of the limited-range counteragent. Outside, Jack and Martinez reached a service entrance. Jack's enhanced strengths, courtesy of the adrenaline, compounded out him to force the locked door, providing access to the facility's western wing. We're in, Jack reported, moving to position Alpha. Hawk maintained overwatch, tracking movements. Through his scope, 2 enhanced operators have separated from main group, moving towards secondary entrance. Your position, Commander. Copy. Will engage and attempt counteragent deployment. Martinez gave Jack a sharp look. That wasn't the plan. You were supposed to maintain command position. Plans change when the enemy splits their force, Jack replied, the familiar combat focus narrowing his world to immediate tactical priorities. They're moving to secure all exits. We need to neutralize them before they complete the encirclement. The first enhanced operator appeared at the end of the corridor, moving with unnerving speed, weapon raised. Jack pushed Martinez into a recessed doorway and raised his own weapon, firing with the precision that had once made him legendary in special operations circles. The headshot staggered the enhanced operator but didn't drop him, confirming that Even critical wounds were insufficient against the compound's effects. The operator returned fire, bullets impacting the wall beside them, as Jack and Martinez retreated around a corner. Counteragent Jack ordered tersely. Martinez activated one of the aerosol devices Chambers had created, waiting for the optimal moment as footsteps approached their position. When the enhanced operator rounded the corner, she released the concentrated spray directly into his face. The effect wasn't immediate, but within seconds, the operator's movements became less fluid, his inhuman coordination faltering. Jack pressed the advantage, closing distance to deploy the remainder of the counteragent at point-blank range. The operator collapsed, his system overwhelmed as the carefully designed molecule broke down the compound's neural bonds. Counteragent, effective, Jack reported through comms. Repeat, counteragent, confirmed, effective. In the central section of the facility, Ghost and Cypher engaged with the main group of enhanced operators. Using the counteragent devices as their primary weapons, they executed a coordinated attack that maximized coverage while minimizing their exposure to return fire. 2 neutralized, Ghost reported. 3 still active. Wells has entered the main laboratory. Stop him before he accesses the containment area, Jack ordered, already moving toward their position with Martinez close behind. The facility had become a battleground, security forces retreating to defensive positions. Enhanced operators systematically neutralizing resistance as they secured key areas. The counteragent had proven effective, but deploying it required dangerous proximity to targets with superhuman strength and speed. Hawk's voice came through the comms with new urgency. Additional vehicle approaching from North Access Road. Deep tactical response team based on markings. Richardson, Jack concluded grimly. He monitored the facility alerts. They'll be walking into a massacre, Martinez said. Standard tactics won't work against the enhanced operators. Hawk, delay the DoD team. Jack ordered non-lethal options only. These are friendlies, copy. Hawk acknowledged. Moving to intercept position. Jack and Martinez reached the central laboratory section to find Ghost engaged with 2 remaining enhanced operators while Cypher pursued Wells deeper into the facility. The counteragent was working, but deployment challenges had allowed Wells to advance further than anticipated. Status? Jack demanded, taking cover behind an overturned equipment cabinet. Wells is heading for the Level 4 containment area, Ghost reported, ducking as an enhanced operator hurled a metal cabinet with inhuman strength. Cypher's in pursuit. I've been keeping these 2 occupied. Martinez prepared another counteragent device. We need to neutralize them quickly and follow Wells. Jack assessed the tactical situation, calculating angles and approach vectors. Ghost, draw them toward the east doorway. Martinez, position for maximum dispersal when they pass that junction. The coordinated maneuver worked with textbook precision. Ghost retreated strategically, firing controlled bursts that forced the enhanced operators to follow his planned route. When they reached the designated position, Martinez deployed the counteragent in a concentrated cloud that enveloped both targets. The effect was dramatic. Both operators staggered, their enhanced capabilities visibly degrading as the counteragent disrupted the compound's neural interfaces. Jack and Ghost moved in to complete the neutralization, securing the operators as they collapsed. Central lab secure, Jack reported. Moving to containment area, Commander, Martinez called urgently, her attention on his medical readings rather than the tactical situation. Your cardiac rhythm is critically unstable. The adrenaline compound is breaking down. Jack felt at the unnatural clarity beginning to fade, pain signals reasserting themselves with increasing intensity. How long? Minutes? Not hours, she replied grimly. You need to stand down now. Not until Wells is contained, Jack replied, already moving toward the containment area. Ghost, secure this position. Martinez with me. They advanced through the facility, following the signs of Cypher's pursuit. Discarded equipment, bullet impacts in walls, doors forced open. The containment area ahead was marked with prominent biohazard warnings and security protocols that had been bypassed or disabled. Cypher, report, Jack called through the comms. Static answered, then a strained voice. Containment antechamber. Wells has hostage facility scientist. Threatening to release, ... Containment seals. Jack and Martinez exchanged grim looks. The situation had escalated beyond a simple capture operation. If Wells released the containment seals on a Level 4 biohazard facility, the consequences would be catastrophic. We need to end this now, Jack said, checking his weapon. Martinez, you're the medic. Can you talk him down? I can try, she replied, though her expression suggested limited confidence in that approach. They reached the containment antechamber, a sterile preparation area preceding the actual biocontainment zones. Cypher was taking cover behind an equipment console, weapon trained on Wells, who held a terrified scientist in a restrained hold. A metal case lay open on a nearby counter, containing medical equipment clearly designed for extraction procedures. Commander Reeves, Wells called, recognition evident in his voice. Of course, they'd send you, the DoD's perfect soldier. It's over, Wells, Jack replied, weapon steady despite his deteriorating condition. Your enhanced operators have been neutralized. The compound is finished, neutralized. Wells laughed, a sound edged with manic energy. That's where you're wrong, Commander. They were just the prototype, the proof of concept. What comes next will be magnificent. There is no next, Jack stated flatly. The compound is too dangerous. You've seen what it does to the human body, the neurological damage it causes. Side effects can be managed, Wells insisted. Elisa's research proved that. With her tissue samples and this facility's equipment, I can perfect the formula. Martinez stepped forward, hands visible to show she wasn't an immediate threat. Dr. Wells? I'm a medical officer. I treated patients suffering from exposure to your compound. The neural degradation isn't a side effect, it's an inevitable consequence of the cellular modifications. Wells studied her with sudden interest. You were at Helmond. You treated the SIGMA cases. Yes, Martinez confirmed. I watched good soldiers die in agony because their bodies rejected the compound's modifications. This isn't the breakthrough you think it is. It's a death sentence with a temporary enhancement window. For a moment, Wells seemed to waver, professional scientific interest competing with his obsession. Then his expression hardened again. You don't understand the potential, he insisted. With the right stabilization techniques, the stabilization fails. Jack interrupted. Chambers confirmed it. The neural bonds degrade no matter what modifications you make to the delivery system. Wells' grip tightened on the hostage scientist. Chambers is a coward who lacked the vision to see this through. I won't make the same mistake. Jack assessed the situation with the cold precision of combat experience. Wells was beyond reasoning, driven by a combination of scientific obsession and the psychological trauma of his abandonment in Kandahar. The hostage was in immediate danger, and if Wells reached the containment controls, countless more would be at risk. The decision crystallized with familiar clarity. Martinez, Jack said quietly, take command. Before she could respond, Jack stepped forward, deliberately exposing himself. You want to prove the compound works, Wells? Test it against the original. Wells' attention snapped to Jack, momentary confusion giving way to realization. You were exposed in Kandahar. Minimal exposure during the extraction, Jack confirmed. Not enough for enhancement, but enough to establish baseline neural pathways. This was partially true. Jack had experienced limited exposure during the operation, though nothing like what Doc had endured. The claim, however, captured Wells' scientific curiosity exactly as intended. Fascinating, Wells murmured, his grip on the hostage loosening slightly as his attention shifted to Jack. A controlled comparison case after 9 years of latency. Jack continued his approach, drawing Wells' focus further from both the hostage and the containment controls. You want a research subject who understands what the compound can do? I'm right here. The gambit worked. Wells released the hostage, shoving her toward Martinez while maintaining his focus on Jack. Your neural structure would provide valuable comparative data, he acknowledged. Reaching for something in his case, Cypher moved the instant the hostage was clear, attempting to flank Wells from the left. Wells reacted with the heightened awareness of someone who had sampled his own compound. Pivoting to track the new threat, in that moment of divided attention, Jack closed the remaining distance. Despite his failing strength, years of combat training guided his movements with lethal efficiency. He struck with precision, targeting vulnerable points that even enhanced physiology couldn't fully protect. Wells fought back with surprising strength, confirming Jack's suspicion that he had used a modified version of the compound on himself. The struggle was brief but intense, two men with intimate knowledge of the other's capabilities, each fighting with the absolute conviction of their position. In the end, Jack's experience overcame Wells' enhancement. A precisely executed takedown left the scientist pinned, Martinez and Cypher moving in to secure him with restraints from the nearby medical equipment. It's finished, Jack said. His breathing labored as the last of the adrenaline compound metabolized. Out of his system, the compound dies here. Wells laughed despite his restraints, a chilling sound devoid of sanity. You still don't understand, Commander. It was never about the weapon potential. It was about the next step in human evolution. There's nothing evolutionary about what you've created, Jack replied. Just another way for humans to destroy themselves. As Martinez secured Wells, Cypher reported through the comms that the DoD tactical team had entered the facility, directed by Hawk to the secured areas rather than the zone still containing neutralized enhanced operators. Richardson will be here soon, Cypher warned, and he'll want the research preserved. Jack nodded. The decision already made. Destroy Wells' equipment and samples. All of it. Martinez looked up from securing Wells. The DoD won't just let this go, Commander. They don't have a choice, Jack replied, his voice weakening as his body began to fail. The risk is too great. As Cypher methodically destroyed the extraction equipment and samples, Jack felt the artificial strength that had sustained him through the operation finally give way. He collapsed against a nearby wall, sliding down to a seated position as his systems began to shut down. Martinez was at his side immediately, medical training taking precedence over tactical considerations now that the immediate threat was contained. Stay with me, Commander, she ordered, administering emergency medications from her kit. "We're getting you out of here." Jack shook his head slightly, conserving what little energy remained. "Mission first. Make sure the compound is destroyed. All of it." "Already done," Cypher confirmed, completing the destruction of Wells' case and its contents. "Nothing salvageable remains." Ghost's voice came through the comms. "DoD team has secured the central lab area. Richardson is with them. Keep him away from Wells until everything is destroyed," Jack instructed, his voice barely above a whisper. Now, Martinez continued emergency treatment, her expression revealing what her words did in that Jack's system was failing catastrophically. The combined stress of his injuries and the adrenaline compounds having pushed his body beyond sustainable limits. "Hold on," she urged, administering cardiac stabilizers. "We're getting you to a medical facility." Jack managed a faint smile. "We both know that's not happening, Lieutenant." Around them, the facility lockdown protocols were being systematically disabled as DoD teams secured the area. Richardson would arrive soon, demanding explanations and attempting to salvage what he could of the compound research. "Tell Chambers she did the right thing," Jack said, focusing on Martinez with the last of his strength. "Make sure Doc gets proper treatment." "The team will be taken care of," Martinez promised, professional detachment failing as she watched the man who had become more than just a patient slipping away. "Commander Jack, stay with me." But Jack Reeves had completed his final mission. As Richardson's voice echoed down the corridor, demanding situation reports and access to the containment area, the legendary commander closed his eyes, a look of peace replacing the tension that had driven him through decades of service. The compound that had cost so many lives, that had haunted the survivors of Kandahar for 9 years, was finally destroyed. Whatever records remained would be incomplete, insufficient to recreate Wells' work. The threat had been neutralized, permanently this time, in his last moments of consciousness. Jack felt something he hadn't experienced since before Kandahar, the pure, uncomplicated satisfaction of a mission truly completed, not just a tactical objective achieved, but a moral debt repaid to those who had suffered because of what happened in room 237. "Mission complete," he whispered, and then was still. 3 months after the incident at the biocontainment facility, Elena Martinez stood, at attention in her dress uniform, watching as the simple casket was lowered into the ground. Arlington Cemetery stretched around her in ordered rows of white markers, the visible ledger of America's combat losses, though only a fraction of the true cost remained visible to the public eye. The funeral was small by Arlington standards. No politicians, no media, just a handful of attendees, standing silent in the spring sunshine. The official story, carefully constructed by Richardson and his DoD team, listed Commander Jack Reeves as having died from complications of injuries sustained during classified operations. It wasn't entirely untrue. Ghost stood to Martinez's left, his typically unremarkable features set in dignified remembrance. Hawk maintained a position slightly apart from the group, eyes constantly scanning the perimeter. Old habits persisting even here among the honored dead. Cypher, almost unrecognizable in his formal attire, stood with perfect military bearing despite having left active service years ago. Doc was seated in a wheelchair, his condition having deteriorated in the aftermath of the operation. The strain of testing the counteragent against his own tissues had accelerated the neurological damage from his original exposure, yet his eyes remained clear and focused as the honor guard folded the flag with ceremonial precision. Elise Chambers stood apart from the team, her presence a complex statement about redemption and responsibility. After the incident, she had volunteered all her research to help treat the long-term effects of serum K exposure in the surviving hostages from Kandahar. Doc was her first patient. Richardson approached as the ceremony concluded, the flag now cradled in Martinez's arms. "Lieutenant," he acknowledged with a nod, "the team performed admirably under unprecedented circumstances." "We completed our mission," Martinez replied, her tone making it clear that his approval was neither sought nor required. "About that mission," Richardson said, lowering his voice, "there are still questions about the destruction of Dr. Wells' research materials. Valuable data was lost." "Nothing of value was lost," Martinez countered, "only the means to create more suffering." Richardson studied her, reassessing her position in the new order that had emerged from the incident. "The DoD is authorized continued treatment for all personnel affected by serum K exposure. Dr. Chambers will have full resources to develop therapeutic interventions, but not enhancement applications," Martinez stated, making it a condition rather than a question. "The project has been permanently discontinued," Richardson confirmed, though something in his tone suggested the decision hadn't been entirely voluntary. "Wells remains in custody at a specialized facility. He'll never see the outside of a secure room again." The team had made certain of that outcome. Ghost and Cypher had ensured that sufficient evidence of Wells' activities reached key oversight committees, creating too many witnesses for even Richardson to manage. The compound's research history was now radioactive within military and intelligence circles, a cautionary tale rather than a tempting possibility. Commander Reeves' service record has been updated to reflect his final operation, Richardson added. The classified sections have been amended to acknowledge the full scope of his contributions. Martinez nodded, understanding what remained unspoken. Jack's record now showed the truth of Kandahar, not just a hostage rescue, but the neutralization of a bioweapon threat that had continued to echo through the years until his final mission brought it to an end. The team has been officially recognized as well, Richardson continued. Confidential commendations have been added to your files. We didn't do it for commendations, Martinez replied. No, Richardson agreed, surprising her with his candor. You did it because Reeves asked you to. That kind of loyalty can't be manufactured or trained. It can only be earned. He extended his hand, a gesture that acknowledged her as an equal rather than a subordinate. After a moment's hesitation, Martinez shook it firmly. The treatment program for affected personnel will require medical oversight, Richardson said. Someone who understands both the compound's effects and the unique requirements of special operations veterans. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Richardson? I'm acknowledging that you've already chosen one, he corrected. The paperwork just needs to catch up with reality. As Richardson departed, the team gathered closer around the gravesite. The official ceremony had concluded, but they remained bound by something deeper than military protocol. What now? Hawk asked, breaking the silence. We continue what the commander started, Martinez replied, her decision already made. We ensure the survivors of Kandahar receive proper treatment. We make certain this never happens again. And Wells' research? Cypher inquired. There will always be others interested in what he created. Let them come, Ghost said quietly. We'll be waiting. The simple statement carried the weight of a solemn vow that Jack's final mission would not be undone, that the team would remain vigilant against those who might attempt to resurrect the compound or its applications. Gok looked up from his wheelchair, his medical training allowing him to see what the others might have missed that Martinez had taken on, not just Jack's mission, but something of his burden as well. He knew, Doc said. From the moment Richardson showed up at the hospital, he knew how it would end. Yes, Martinez agreed. He made his choice with open eyes. As did we all, Hawk added. They stood together a moment longer, the shared understanding passing between them without need for further words. Then, with the synchronicity that had once made them legendary in the field, they rendered a final salute to their fallen commander. Martinez was the last to leave the graveside. As the others moved toward the waiting vehicles, she knelt and placed something small atop the fresh earth, the silver lieutenant's bars she had once worn in Afghanistan, a symbol of service and sacrifice, from one warrior to another. Rest easy, Commander, she said softly. We've got the watch now. 6 months later, a specialized treatment facility opened on the outskirts of San Antonio, officially designated as a Veterans Rehabilitation Center. Its true purpose was known only to those with specific clearance levels. Here, the survivors of Kandahar and other classified operations involving Serum K exposure received treatment for the long-term effects of the compound. Martinez directed the medical program, her combination of combat experience and trauma expertise uniquely qualifying her for the role. Chambers led the research division, focusing exclusively on neutralizing and reversing the compound's neurobonding rather than enhancing its effects. The facility operated under strict congressional oversight, with multiple redundant safeguards. Against the research being redirected toward weapons applications, Ghost had designed the security protocols himself, incorporating lessons from every breach attempt he had ever studied or executed. Doc had become the program's first success story, his neurological symptoms stabilizing and then gradually improving under the specialized treatment regimen. Though he would never fully recover, he had regained enough function to serve as a medical consultant, his first-hand experience with the compound proving invaluable. Hawk and Cypher maintained their distance from official roles, but remained connected to the program through encrypted channels that even Richardson couldn't monitor. They had established an informal intelligence network focused on identifying and neutralizing attempts to recreate Wells' research, operating in the shadows where official agencies couldn't or wouldn't reach. On the anniversary of Jack's death, the team gathered at his grave. No formal ceremony this time, just 5 people who carried forward the mission of a 6th who was no longer with them. We've identified 3 separate attempts to acquire Serum K research in the past year, Cypher reported. All neutralized before they gained traction. The treatment program has stabilized 27 patients, Martinez added. Full recovery remains elusive, but quality of life improvements are significant. And Wells? Ghost asked. Still in custody, Cypher confirmed. Still attempting to convince his handlers of the compound's potential, still failing. They spoke of operational matters first, as Jack would have expected. Mission parameters, objectives achieved, threats neutralized, the language of soldiers completing their assigned tasks with professional precision. Only afterward, as they shared a bottle of Jack's preferred bourbon, did they speak of the man himself, the commander who had led them through impossible situations, who had valued their lives above his own, who had made the ultimate sacrifice to complete one final mission. He would have hated this, Hawk observed with a rare smile. All of us standing around getting sentimental. True, Doc agreed. He'd have told us to focus on the mission, not the man. And yet here we are, Martinez said, raising her glass. To the commander, to Jack, the others echoed, using his name rather than his rank a privilege, reserved for those who had truly known the man behind the legend, as they departed. Each returning to their role in the ongoing mission, Martinez remained behind for a moment. The silver lieutenant's bars she had left a year earlier had been joined by other small tokens, evidence that others who had served with Jack had found their way to pay their respects. Even without official acknowledgement of his final operation, she placed her hand briefly on the simple headstone, feeling the connection to the man who had changed her path with a chance encounter in an emergency room. Mission continues, Commander, she said quietly, just as you would have wanted. In the distance, young recruits marched in formation, their instructors calling cadence as they passed the endless rows of white markers. They would never know the full story of Commander Jack Reeves, or what had happened in room 237. They would never understand the sacrifices made by the quiet professionals who operated in the shadows of American military power. But they would sleep safely because of those sacrifices. They would train and serve without facing the horrors of enhanced operators or weaponized biological compounds. The Invisible Guardians. Jack's team would ensure that some threats never materialized, that some weapons remained theoretical rather than deployed. As Martinez walked away from the grave, her phone vibrated with a message from Safara New. Alert, a new potential threat requiring assessment. Without breaking stride, she accessed the encrypted file, already analyzing options and resources. The mission continued. It always would.